September 24th budget review meeting, board budget review meeting will now come to order. The budget presentation or the budget review today will follow the budget presentation calendar showing that our budget books will be starting with administration, and the chair recognizes Leslie Malley and Liz Mackey.
I've asked Liz to come and talk to you all, just give myself a kind of an arm's length from the administration discussion. So Liz is going to walk us through that. Good afternoon. We're going to start on page 12 of your packet, which is about 4th page in of the by division section. The first 3 pages in that section first is an overall summary of each of the division breakdowns and how that all rolls up together, and then there's a couple graphs. And then you have that first division summary for administration. Everybody have that? This by division? Go to the very first page. Just walk through what you just. Well, okay. So if you want to go back to page 9, then that's fine. That's our budget overview by division. That gives you the revenue, expense, capital, and then we kind of did a breakdown of that fleet budget of which division those fleet assets were going to give you your total. At the very bottom is the administration one, which is where your assessment dollars are all in the administration division. So that $12.8 million right there is what you're going to see that's available for all of the to subsidize services and amenities throughout the organization. You also see there that the remaining balance then covers all of our debt service. We are spending some of this escrowed funds and some prior year rollover, and those have already been identified, but we'll continue to talk about what specifically that's for. And then you also see the additions to reserves that are budgeted to get us to a bottom line of 0, a balanced budget.
Are we taking questions as we? I don't know how this day goes. Do we take questions as we?
Yeah,
go?
I think we take questions as we move along. Okay, let's not wait till the end. Get them out on the table.
Okay, that's good.
The next page is a graphical representation of all of your total revenue by division. So that's where you see that 43.68% of your revenue overall comes from the administration division, which is primarily assessments. There's some interest revenues and some other smaller amounts in there, but the bulk of it's from assessment funds. And then the very next page is the percentage of total expenses by division. Any questions, sir? All right. So now we'll go to page 12, that division summary for administration. Administration is the division that manages the association. So this includes both your executive leadership as well as your accounting, IT, human resources, all of those kind of primary functions to keep us operating. The total net income that you're looking on here, again, that's the amount of assessments that will be available to subsidize services and amenities. That $12.8 million is a $161,000 decrease that is related primarily to an increase in bad debt expense, the phone and server leases, but it's offset by a reduction in compensation. If you look at the revenue line, that represents a 2.7% CPI increase to assessments. It's about $260,000 of revenue increase, plus about 60 additional improved properties. But that also includes a $400,000 increase to bad debt expense, which is based on our current trends. Tom, did you have a question?
Well, I was just thinking about revenue and all the questions that have been coming out lately. That $16 million, do you have any sense of what percent of that is resident versus non-resident?
Resident versus non-resident, or improved versus unimproved?
Yeah, improved.
Improved, excuse me.
I can look that up for you in just a second when I get back to the computer, but I can answer that. for you. It averages now, after the two-tier assessment, between 50% and 60%, depending on those in good standing.
So 50 to 60%, meaning 50 to 60%
On the unimproved side, yes.
or unimproved provides 50 to 60% of our operating revenue.
They do, and before the two-tier assessment, it was roughly 75% that the unimproved properties contributed to that revenue network.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty, if you look at the compensation, you will see a decrease there. We have several tenured employees in this division leaving now or at the end of this year. I think there's a total of 4. So that combined with which Linda's retirement is one of those, and we have created a plan, or Leslie has created a plan to realign the staff following the guidelines of the CMP and replacing the COO while overall reducing compensation and keeping headcounts flat. So that's one of the big pieces there. Operating expenses have increased, again, related to the phone and server leases. There's also a disaster recovery solution for our computer systems, our operating systems, a plan to keep us, if disaster strike, to actually still be able to operate. Right now, we've only got that. We've got backups in the cloud, but we couldn't pull them back up online immediately. And so there's a disaster recovery solution planned for 2019 that will allow us to actually spin it back up and operate in a much faster fashion. There's also some increases there just related to software expense pricing increases that happen over time, and telephone expenses. They like to raise those bills on us every year with cable and telephone and things like that. On the capital, you have a total of $115,000. That is our computer replacements, which are on a 3-year cycle. We have about 150 computers throughout this organization. So we've got a replacement plan that replaces those on a regular basis. Not all of them get replaced necessarily with a new computer. A lot of times we can take a computer that's been used day in, day out and maybe needs to be replaced and move it to someplace where it only gets used occasionally. And the other large portion of our capital is addressing one of the service gaps for our community, which is public Wi-Fi. Our target for 2019 is to implement public Wi-Fi in this facility in the Coronado Center. Yes, there is public Wi-Fi here now. If anybody's tried to use it, it's almost like it's not here sometimes. So we've been working on developing a plan to improve that and not just cover the building or the facility, but cover the area to be able to have public Wi-Fi in the Grove Park area or in the Coronado Center area, not just in the Coronado Center or in the fitness center, but to be able to have it out the whole tennis court, trails kind of area around that. If you have any questions about that before I flip you to a different section.
Admin? Okay. What's the biggest risk you see with respect to the revenue side?
Our largest risk is always in estimates that we make in any organization, and in this particular case, it's the estimation of bad debt. So we've increased that estimation based on trends that we're seeing right now. We're also trying to find new ways to try to redress that bad debt. We've been down a legal road with NRPI and its successor entities for quite a while. So now it's time to kind of take a look and say, okay, what else can we do? Versus we definitely don't want to just assume that we can't collect it. We want to continue to try to find new ways to reach people and collect on those assessments that have not been paid and try to prevent that number from growing if at all possible.
Liz, how do you estimate the bad debts? Do you want a certain percentage, your trend line you talked about? Exactly how did you come up with 400,000?
What we're doing right now is monthly. We take an estimation off of our aging, and it's everything that is over 365 days old, plus any of the balances of that NRPI group. So what we did, and then we adjust our bad debt every month to get that number. That's been running between $250,000 and $300,000 a month.
So with regard to bad debt, we're experiencing worse bad debt results this year than we anticipated this year. Is that true?
A little bit.
A little bit, like by a few $100,000. Yeah, okay. And so what we're expecting is a better bad debt experience in 2019 than what we're currently experiencing in 2018. Is that right?
Yes, we're hoping to improve that, but we're also increasing the amount that we're budgeting for bad debt to accommodate the fact that it hasn't been where we had planned for 2018.
Okay, but your expectation for 2019 shows a better bad debt expectation than 2018. Is that right? Do I have that right?
Yes.
I think I do. Yeah. So what's going to be different between 2019 and 2018 that will improve our bad debt experience?
From looking at our aging, I think there's some other entities that were not necessarily part of NRPI that we haven't necessarily targeted, and we've got some room and some work to do in those areas.
Question.
That answers it for me.
What is the total now that RPI owns us, or we're in debt?
It is about $8 million that hasn't been written off yet. You know, we have a policy where we write off anything older than 5 years because it's past the statute of limitations. So as of the end of August, it was about $8 million.
What was the total when we started writing it off?
You know, I know it was before I was here, so I'm not totally sure. You know, I think when we started tracking it, when I first got here in 2014, the total bad debt was at $14 million, most of which was NRPI. And now it's $17 million. A large majority of that is their continuing balances until we write off or collect through litigation that big number. I think we have a $13 million judgment, which includes interest and penalties.
So we're going to do that right off this year? Do you expect?
No, not yet, only because we don't feel like we're completely finished with the litigation. We're wound down a little bit, but we have a few more actions to take there.
Just administrative, guys, we don't need to ask the chair, just ask the questions if you got them.
Oh,
That'd save me a lot of that.
You play tennis? The rules are all the time.
That's
I
all
don't
right,
want to
you
get in
can
trouble.
have, you
I
can
don't
have.
want to get in trouble.
If you want to flip to the fees section really quickly, the first page is just kind of a summary of the fees recommendations and overviews. But if you look at pages 29 and 30, that is the administrative fees section. You will see that, you will see, again, the 2.7% CPI increase, but we are not recommending any other fee increases for administrative fees, which includes all of the gate cards, work passes, things like that. You know, the fees that we charge in that area are really just to recover our costs for providing those things. So we haven't seen a significant increase in costs, so we have not raised the prices there.
Will we be collecting fees for the stickers on the car this year? I think last year maybe we did not.
What we've done with this budget is to leave it again with the first two for each property owner. We have a policy that states the first two are free and the additional ones will be charged. We've left that in there as is for right now. When we come back with a final recommendation on gates and RFID decals, we'll come back to you with a different plan for decals. But at this point in time, we're just going to use the regular decal stickers as we have in the past.
Yeah, let me clarify. We actually are ordering 2019, the regular stickers that you see today, and starting that process. As you know, our annual pass sales start in November. We obviously aren't going to be prepared by November to implement a gate software. We don't have an estimate yet on when that might occur, so we're going to go ahead and proceed as we have in the past. Everything will function as it has in the past until we circle back around.
So we all will have to get a new 2019 sticker instead of the 2018, we'll have to get a different color sticker then.
Yes, sir.
Is that the end of your
That's the end of
presentation?
my presentation,
Oh.
unless you have more questions.
I have several. Okay. I know. Okay, so here are some of my questions, and you tell me if it's not appropriately placed, it goes to somebody else. But in the budget, it shows that the escrow amount is increasing from 1.1 to 1.8 million. That isn't exactly right,
No,
is it?
it's $3 million that are in the escrow account, so what you're probably looking at is the amount used versus the amount remaining.
Okay,
And it's identified as such in a couple different places.
okay, all right, fair enough.
Like on that very first, page 3, the address, you see 1.3 is the escrow and prior year rollover funds used combined. But down at the bottom of that page, you see there's 1.8 remaining.
Right, and it showed 1.1 for 2018 on that same chart. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah,
Remaining escrow at year end.
you're correct, Cindy. 1.1 is the amount of escrow. There's another 270,000 of rollover funds. So the 1.3 that she just mentioned is both escrow and prior year capital rollover funds.
Got it,
All
thanks. All right. I'll ask that later. All right, on page 5, notes and assumptions, it says that a 5% increase in assessments would produce $1 million in additional revenue. But if 2.7 yields 259,000, then how can 5% yield 1 million? My guess is that the 2.7% is net of the bad debt, and the 5% is not. I don't know, but the math doesn't work. So
Yeah.
can you straighten me out?
Two things there. So you're correct. The other amount is net of bad debt, but also remember that 5% doesn't go into 2020, and we are estimating growth for 2019 and 2020. So when you consider where we would be at 2020 and gross amount, that's the numbers that you're looking at there. It actually becomes 5 million in 10 years.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the 60-40 rule? Because I didn't quite understand it as well as I had hoped after Wednesday. Does this budget, what is relevant about the 60-40 rule, and does this budget preserve what's relevant in the 60-40 rule?
Yes. Yes, if you notice on page 3, at the at a glance, and the budget assumptions, I've listed there for you at the very, the next to last item. The last item is remaining escrow. The next to last item is tax exempt status. And the answer is yes, we preserve that. So we have not made it. If you recall, there was a comment made, and I know that was a little bit of a tough conversation. There was a comment made that basically we would have to add that the CPA firm, in their review, we would have to add at least $4 million of non-exempt revenue in order to kind of approach that point where we need to discuss, would we be taxed? And that's only after all of our net operating losses were addressed. So it'd be years after that point that would actually kick in. But 4 million is kind of the number I keep in the back of my head that says if we got non-exempt revenue of that amount, it would trigger potentially tax. Does that make sense? So nothing in our operation, I think another way to say it, nothing in our operation for 2019 changes what that percentage, that 60-40 or the 90% expense rule. There's 2 rules there.
Would it be okay to get that laid out for the board at some point? I don't know how confidential that is or whatever, but since it's a tax issue, I don't know, I have no idea. But it would be nice to lay that out so we just understand it a little better.
What I asked the CPA firm to do when they left was when they prepare our next tax return, to use our actual information rather than talking about it kind of in theory, to actually use for you guys that actual information so you can see that. So we'll have a second kind of education or first education on that then.
They also did provide, and I can maybe summarize it a little bit better too, some written documentation that maybe can go along with that. They actually pulled right out of the instructions from the 1120H from the IRS. So it's certainly not confidential, it's straight out of the tax instructions.
Okay, that's cool. And then you brought up fees, so I'm gonna use this as an opportunity to say on the overview sheet, the revenue is projected in the budget to increase by $471,000, which represents only about a 1.3% increase in revenue. When you combine that with, and I'll need clarity on this, because I think in your presentation, Leslie, you said that we were going to make a $6 million dent in deferred maintenance. The capital portion of this looks like $4 million. That might explain the difference between 6 and 4. I don't know, but it would be helpful to know that. But the CMP called for $19.6 million of deferred maintenance to be would be accumulated in 2019. So there's a gap there. So here's my bottom line concern, and you'll hear me talk about this several times through the budget discussion, but 1.3% top line increase just doesn't seem to be near what it is we need to be able to make the necessary dents in deferred maintenance. And I'm very concerned about that topic.
All right, so you asked a couple different questions. Let's start with the 6 million versus 4 million. So in the operating and maintenance is the section in the CMP. And so there is money, for instance, there's how much in additional roads? 685 in projects there. There are other projects that aren't necessarily considered capital projects within the budget, okay? And so that's that answer. You are correct. When we prepared that section 6 of the CMP, we said, if you were to do everything you wanted to do in 2019 that you felt like was the most important, stick that in that column versus the next year versus the next year. I think we all know we can't do everything we want to do. So until we have some questions answered on the declaration vote, until we have some questions answered about our growth, the plan at this point is to maximize the funds we do have, addressing the priority items, which will mean we will continue deferring that until we solve those issues, and we won't solve them all in the first year. That's a 20-year plan. So,
Yes.
And the other part of that is, we took a very aggressive stance. If we did it all within 3 years, you might even remember we at one point, which we switched because the property owners, commented they weren't ready for a special assessment. That wasn't a topic. They felt like we needed to demonstrate our efficient uses of what we do have. So that's 2019's budget, is to demonstrate those priorities, understand where we stand on that vote, get some of our remaining questions answered, such as our deliberative engagement sessions on the Balboa Club, what we intend to do there. Is that the number that we originally estimated, or is it something less or more? I think there are still too many questions to answer to today say, here is the silver bullet.
Okay, so that's fair enough. But even so, the 4 million of the 45 million is what's targeted in this budget from a capital perspective, right? And it called for 19.6, and I understand that was, gosh, if we could do everything we want to get done in 2019, this is what it would add up to. That just strikes me as too big of a gap still between the 4 and the 19.6 million. And it's predicated on a notion that most of our fees are not going to be increasing now, if I'm fair, right? So I would like to call for a re-examination of that and any other revenue-generating opportunities in 2019 that would allow for a greater provision of funding for deferred maintenance. Not for growth, not for all the things that are the hot buttons, but for deferred maintenance.
So, and that's the decisions this board will make in the budget. You saw what I'm recommending. Do you have a recommendation that you want to lay out on the table today?
Not specific by fees, I'm just in concept saying that I think to have so many of our fees, no increase at all, combined with this deferred maintenance, is something that maybe we ought to re-examine. I don't have an answer today. I didn't come prepared with, didn't know that was the idea, but I could prepare one certainly. But I don't think I'm the best person to prepare it by any stretch, but I'm just speaking to the notion.
So the opportunity for us is either assessment or fees. And the assessments is beyond our control. We have to stay with what we have. So what you're recommending is for us to, later on, before we approve the budget, to consider increases in fees to help fund much-needed repair of aging assets.
I think that's one way to do it. There's other ways to do it. And we haven't got to say golf for some of the other presentations, but are there opportunities to, increase the sale of lots, that are in our inventory? I'm not saying these are all good ideas, but I think there's more ideas than just fees, but fees is certainly a big one.
I just want to, since we have people in the audience and people recording, I want to go on record as saying that I'm not supportive at this time of making large increases in fees. I believe that we still have some significant investigations to do on our large assets, and I think we need to spend 2019 understanding those outcomes of water discussion like that.
Just one more thing in that, I promise I'll move on. I've got 1 minute. Would we be able to see a projected statement of financial condition resulting from this budget?
I believe that's what's on the front page, that Adam Lance report provides that information.
But not in the form of a statement of financial condition.
You're talking about a balance sheet, correct? Well, we basically have laid out all the balance sheet items there, but you mean actually lay out the balance sheet itself?
Yeah.
Sure, we can work on that. Okay, next up.
We have audience
Next up. Oh, did we hand out?
Good question. We're gonna go through with our review, and then you can, we'll take questions on those sheets at the end when we're through with our review today.
So this next group, we have about an hour for this particular part of the presentation, and it includes 4 divisions. Sales and marketing, development, discovery and tourism, and real estate acquisitions. And each of these individuals, each of these directors are going to visit with you on those. Ladies and gentlemen, if you would, please make sure that the board is with tracking with you on before you. It's kind of hard when you're all sitting there, but if you would, just make sure they're on your particular page. And we're going to start with Stephanie, and I think you're sitting in the order that we're going in, right? Okay, so Stephanie Heffler, our Director of Lifestyle Development.
Or placemaking development, either way that works.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So good afternoon. As she said, I'm Stephanie Heffler, and I'm the Director of Placemaking and Development at Hot Springs Village. I'm going to present a high-level overview of our division, which includes placemaking and development, permitting and inspections, real estate acquisitions, sales and marketing, tourism and community affairs, and communications. Along with myself.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Stephanie. And you all have a presentation, do you not?
We do.
Okay, so at some point, will you let us know before you?
I'm just about to jump over to the next one. I sure will. So as you can see, our division is quite diverse, but intricately tied together in our commitment to the future of Hot Springs Village and implementing the comprehensive master plan. The 4 of us work closely together all the time. So this is the division overview slide. You'll see. Do we want to grab some lights? Let's do that. And again, to set it up, I'm gonna touch very briefly on this overview. I'm gonna speak specifically to placement and development and permitting and inspections, and then my colleagues here will speak to their divisions respectively. So if you'll notice, revenues remain fairly constant. Of the 6 departments within the division, only permitting and inspections, sales, and tourism through discovery packages generate revenue. Compensation reflects a realignment of personnel, putting the right people in the right places to achieve our objectives. And the change between 2018 and 2019 represents moving the real estate acquisition personnel into this division. Expenses are down 33% year over year, primarily due to operational efficiencies and the closing of the Hot Springs Discovery Center storefront in downtown Hot Springs. When I say closing, we're relocating, obviously, and we'll talk about that in a moment, so relocating to the Plaza Center. Capital is limited to initial planning for wayfinding, which is the graphic design and public engagement process. It addresses one of our service gaps in the comprehensive master plan related to transportation. In relocating the Hot Springs Discovery Center location to the La Plaza Village Homes and Land offices resulted in a reduction of 1 employee, taking us from 15 to 14 in 2019. So these 6 departments represent a total subsidy of just over $1.1 million in 2019, which is down 20% from 2018. Move on to the next slide. So as I mentioned, I'm going to speak specifically to what I'm in charge of, and that is the permitting and inspections department and the development department. So permitting inspections, the 2 areas I have responsibility for are those. And as you can see, they're both very small, 6 people in total. These 2 areas represent 31% of the total division budget, as we talked about, that $1.1 million. Permitting and inspections activities are based on 30 new lots sold and 60 new home permits. You've heard, I think, about that for the last few days. In addition, the office processes approximately 2,400 other permits each year, so there's a lot more going on than just new home permits in the office. We are not recommending a fee increase this year, but are fine-tuning how we charge for permits. The fees committee recommends charging for all inspections required for all permit types, and that is a process that we're going through now. The impact to new permit fees is marginal, but does better represent true costs associated with each. We've looked at how Hot Springs Village compares with Hot Springs, Benton, Bryant, Little Rock, North Little Rock, and we're very competitive. We fall right in the middle of the hunt there. We're just under $1,000, and they range anywhere from around $900 to about $1,200 in those different communities. So we feel good about the fee schedule that we have today. P&I also will be assuming all the staff level responsibilities as outlined in the newly adopted protective covenants. Skip something, sorry. Okay, I think it's good, I'm sorry. So, what you won't find in this budget recommendation is any funding requests for new development. What you will find is a balanced approach to better position Hot Springs Village for long-term and incremental growth that is sustainable. So development, our focus areas here. Through the projects listed here on the screen, we're addressing maintenance, service gaps, and creating new value. So we wanted, again, create a balanced approach to how we attempt to do all that for 2019. So pocket neighborhood activities will include property acquisition, building a pro forma, and working with our Builders Guild members on development strategies, creating new value, deliberative public engagement that will result in a recommendation to the board on the renovation of the Balboa Club mid-year, stressing maintenance. Got a typo up there, sorry. Public engagement and stakeholder input on wayfinding and initial graphic design, service gaps, connecting with the homeowners, townhouse owners, business owners, property owners, and churches in the Coronado Center neighborhood to better understand the needs of this area, creating new value, and continuing the conversation with property owners and begin recruiting developers and investors on the town center, again, creating new value. So to wrap it up, we feel that the 4 enterprise goals are well represented in the 2016 permitting inspections and development budget. utilizing property owner input on the Balboa Club renovation, better understanding the needs of our existing neighborhood centers through public engagement, and assessing our wayfinding system protects community-wide value and lifestyle, creating a pro forma and working with our Builders Guild members on new pocket neighborhood development, and creating the conditions for outside investment will strengthen the financial health of the village, implementing staff level review processes per the CMP and protective covenants, and improving operational efficiencies within the P&I division will build property owner trust and support, and working with property owners through public engagement and community needs to improve our wayfinding system will provide welcoming visitor experiences. So that's actually all I have. I'm happy to take questions before I hand it off to Renee.
I'd like to, if you don't mind, I'd like to add something. I just want to mention, I know the town center conversation has been extremely controversial. There are two very important points that Stephanie made in that presentation. Number one, Stephanie, can you go back to the slide that says we are not advocating to be a developer? So I would reinforce that. That's reinforced in the comprehensive master plan itself, right? That we do not advocate or recommend the POA assume the role of developer. We do advocate and recommend a long-term incremental growth strategy. So with respect to the town center, what are we really talking about right now? We realized there were a lot of words written in that document, a lot of ideas, some by the consultants, some actually by property owners. We could go back and pull those out and survey comments and all sorts of necessarily represent what the outcome will be, because that is one of the longest term strategies in that entire plan. So all we're asking to do in 2019 is to re-engage with the property owners specifically on that topic, maybe even clean up a little bit some of the verbiage in that particular section so that it represents what we know today. You know, it represents what we knew a year ago or what we knew 6 months ago or whenever we ended the last engagement. There'll be many of those. So I want to just make sure to make that point.
Leslie, to support you in that, would you envision after those conversations are complete that you would make a formal change to the CMP based on what you heard to strike language that you no longer feel it should be in the solution set and replace it with language that you learned should be in the solution set?
Absolutely, and as a matter of fact, one of the things, you know, and maybe we didn't make this point clear enough, came out of the steering committee, it was said many times, but I think it can be clarified. That comprehensive master plan and the protective covenants, those are living, breathing documents. So each year we come back and have to look at all of those and say, okay, now what are the new knowns? Now what is the new information? What should we clean up in there? And that would even include the operating and maintenance section, to your point earlier about all of that. With what we know now what do the next 3 years potentially look like? After the vote, what do the next few years look like? We'll do that each year.
Well, and even as was evidenced by the recent changes to the protective covenants, we're learning every day. We're learning what we didn't know or didn't know to even ask at the time of adoption. So and we won't know that until we're faced with, you know, the reality of the situation. So.
Yeah, and I think that's only natural. I would love to see it go that official step of changing the document so we have a new understanding community-wide of what's in and out of the plan.
And I would envision, you know, we still need to create that comprehensive master plan implementation committee. That's very much still on my radar and our radar. One of the things in kind of the draft proposal of, you know, potential, what does that committee structure look like, is actually an annual report to the board that would be the step. There would be a recommendation in there somewhere from a committee who has property owners on it. It's kind of helping to monitor and push forward that implementation. So,
Liz, can you go back to the next slide?
They have to look at
Definitely.
this one.
Maybe it's the next one. There we go. The pocket neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
You say a pro forma. Are you actually going to start construction, or are you just going to gather data next year for the pocket neighborhoods?
We would hope to present a pro forma back to the board and to Leslie and the executive
And you can
team.
start construction in 2019?
That would be our hope. Yes.
and let me clarify, Bill, when you say start construction, again, we are not looking to fund construction. So a huge part of this is what Stephanie said, which was investor and developer recruitment. So none of those plans move forward without that, as Tom so eloquently put it, that appropriate, equal and appropriate return on investment. That's what we hope to lay out. So we need to show.
And it shows that a developer starts construction.
Absolutely. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, that's one of the things that we talk to our Builders Guild members, that, we said to them, we want you to be some of our first investors, if you would, in that project. And they're very receptive to that. That's part of the reason why they signed on to do that, so.
See, I think that's a community-wide misunderstanding, or for many in the community, is nobody's saying no development. We're just saying the POA is not the developer.
Correct.
There's an important difference there, so we need to keep, saying the POA is not the developer, but that doesn't mean development isn't slated to happen in 2019.
I have a question about the P&I department.
Sure.
The permits and assignments and stuff that are coming out are averaging 30 to 40 now every couple of weeks. Beverly is overloaded, has been for a long time. In this budget, are we gonna have an extra person to help in that department?
There is no additional staff members in this budget.
I would go a step further, and I think I said this to, when this question came up in another, I think there are some things that we can do more efficiently. And again, when we have new information that presents otherwise, 2020, when we come back, if growth is up and permits are up, potentially then. But I think first we need to get our house in order.
And we are looking at all of those. We're looking at every way that we can be more efficient, do as much work or more.
I also think the opportunities to demonstrate the deliberative engagement exercise it serves our community well. But I didn't see in our enterprise goals any reference to community engagement with regard to wayfinding, and I'm wondering if it would be worthy to add that, just to, on this one, it does, but in our enterprise goals, I don't believe it does. Nor does it for the 19th hole or DeSoto Cart Barn, which I know we'll get to, but I'm just wondering if it'd be worthy to add that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. These guys, all 40 or so of the directors have all kinds of enterprise goals, and we chose some of the ones. That's another thing that this board decides on, kind of our most important priority items, objectives. We've already established the 4 goals. So if there's the opportunity to add one or take one off or whatever, that's part of this process.
We ready to move on?
We are?
Good afternoon, and thank you for your time. We're now going to talk a little bit about my division, the Real Estate Acquisitions Division. I represent about 19% of our division budget, which we're going to deal with and talk about, and this is approximately $10,000 annually out of the non-compensation budget figures you saw on the overall division budget slide. We're talking about the strategic, whoops, I'm getting my finger happy here. We're talking about a strategic acquisition process that I work on all year for the redefinition as outlined in our comprehensive master plan. I start my acquisition processes using a little or no cost model when I start analyzing our lots, and I'm analyzing mostly our non-productive lots. And this year I was able to acquire 89 lots, 51 of those were purchased from the Commissioner of State Land, and I was able to purchase those using less than $2,100 cash or spent. I used those directly from the Commissioner of State Land, either in an outright purchase from a post-auction or directly from the 2 county auctions. I was also able to acquire 38 lots in a deed in lieu of foreclosure process or other legal actions that are afforded us in our governing documents. And again, reminding everybody that these processes were all unproductive, non-producing, or non-assessment paying lots. In these actions, I was able to gain control of these lots and turn them either into productive assessment paying parcels, or I was able to develop arenas that we will now be able to offer, as you were just discussing, we will be able to offer to these builders or developers as defined areas or potential areas of suspension or naturalization. Or we will be able to offer these as part of these new pocket neighborhoods to the developers or builders. These methods align with our value and growth models of our comprehensive master plan in protecting our long-term financial health and sustainability of the village. They are part of our 2019 enterprise goals. In 2019, we will begin defining our areas of suspension, and we will be presenting to you our first lot suspension strategic plan. We will work closely as we prepare this with our needed departments. Some of the departments are listed here that we will be working very closely with to determine our areas where our non-producing properties and their maintenance obligations, including our roads, the utilities, the drainage, and so on, create our greatest reduction in our large infrastructure liabilities, where no homes have been built, but our obligations still exist to extend our infrastructure should a lot owner decide to build, thus protecting our natural drainage and our preservation of natural character of the village, and reminding all in this process, though, that when suspending or trading lots, we will never take a property owner's rights away. So when we do this suspension strategy and we start trading their lots or reversing their lots into an area, we will never take their rights away. They will just be moved into a different area. They may transfer to another area. I just said that, I'm sorry. The first of these plans, though, will be presented to you in an actual plan in mid-2019. So, whoops, sorry, Kevin. I mean Cheryl. I will be happy to take questions now, but as you can imagine, a lot of what I do falls under a confidentiality issue. Some of that being in the areas that I'm working in. You can imagine that if I tell you where I'm working in some of these areas, I could, yeah. So I'm happy to schedule an executive session with you. I can talk about some of the things. I can't talk about cost to you. I can't talk about the areas, because then you can imagine I can't any longer use my no cost or low cost model, but I'm happy to schedule that to you. I'm happy to answer what I can today too.
Renee, I have a question. Going back to the pocket neighborhoods, let's say you have 15 lots that are all to be used in the pocket neighborhood. Is the developers going to pay us for the lots, or are we donating the lots to them?
No, they are then offered for purchase.
Okay, good.
Yeah, they're offered in either a sellout in one arena or reservation, where they can buy a block at a time and reserve the rest of the area.
That sounds like a win-win for everybody.
Absolutely,
We think so.
absolutely.
I'll save my for executive session. Thank you. So I don't risk anything.
You know, you will only run up our bill, so.
Okay, Cheryl?
Okay, thank you. This is sales and marketing. Okay, you know from our CMP, we want to protect the long-term fiscal sustainability of the village.
I don't think it's on. Can you try this one instead? It's on, she just has to hold it right next to her mouth. See how much fun that is? Where's the line item for better maybe equipment? Yes, yes.
Okay. In the CMP, we want to protect the long-term fiscal sustainability of the village, establish and preserve the natural character of the village, evolve the experiences in housing to meet the changing needs of retirement and demographics. This department represents 26% of the division budget. Okay, as we learned, consumers are interested in experiences, not places, and in benefits, not assets. Our 2019 plan seeks to share the life you already enjoy here with those who are considering the move. How do you paint a picture of what life in Hot Springs Village will be for them? We'll continue to use our tiers and targets from 2018, but we'll allocate our marketing dollars to share our benefits and encourage experiences. Which is more compelling? A lovely print ad of our golf courses, a testimonial on Facebook of a property owner playing, or the guest actually playing on one of our beautiful courses. So first, let's start with the tiers. We have 3 tiers that are split up geographically into 1, 2, and 3. So tier 1 is hyper-local. This represents 11% of the marketing budget. Consider this good neighbor advertising in local publications and supporting local causes. This has limited buyer or tourism potential. This spending is important because it's part of our community. This is Village Voice, KDRE, Habitat for Humanity, concerts, etc. Tier 2 is regional marketing. This includes Little Rock and contiguous states, representing 27% of the marketing budget. These dollars reach all target demographics for sales and tourism. This is statewide NPR, guest books in Little Rock hotels, golf and vacation publications. Tier 3 is national marketing, representing 62% of the marketing budget and directed primarily at the retirement or pre-retirement target market. These have national reach. You saw the article last Wednesday that Leslie shared in Ideal Living. That's one of the places where we advertise, private community, and other retirement e-newsletters. Okay, so that was our tiers. Now let's look at our targets. We have 3 target markets. 61% is empty nesters and retirees. These are the people who are in here. 28% is working families, traditional and non-traditional. That would be someone like myself. Co-workers, commuters into Little Rock and Hot Springs, local workers. And 11% is young singles and couples. These people already live here. There are teachers, they're business owners, they're people who love being a part of nature. That 39% of the bottom 2, they already live here. We just don't see them so much because we meet during the day and they're at work. Okay, as residents, you are the best marketing. Many of you tell your friends and they learn what a great place this is for them. You are a major player in our incremental growth. During Kevin's presentation, he'll tell you about other ways you can be involved. So now let's take a look at each of those tiers a little more specifically. Tier 1, hyper-local. This is digital, print, and other is the split up on the chart. So even though it says we spend 1% in digital, Excel doesn't like zeros. It's all print and other. We discussed some of the examples. This is not to bring in buyers, it's just being a good neighbor. It's print, radio, sponsorships, and some recreational promotions. These are the ads that you see. Tier 2 is regional. This is Little Rock and contiguous states. You'll notice there is some digital using Facebook posts, but it is heavy in print and radio and some expos. Our national Tier 3 advertising can touch this group, but we know that people move from these areas. Tier 3, our national. National is heavy on digital advertising. This is the most cost-effective way to reach people. It's retiree e-newsletters, Ideal Living, private communities, and Ideal Living requires print ads to be part of their digital ads, so I split the expense between the 2. The digital dollars also incorporate SEO, or search engine optimization. This is when you do a search on Google, it's moving explorethevillage.com up to the top of that list. And others in this category, primarily expos. So who and where do the leads come from? 941 of our leads have come through explorethevillage.com since the beginning of 2018. In 2017 and 2018, the order for the most registrants from each state remained the same. You'll notice it's Arkansas, the states that are contiguous, the states that have been historical, and those that have a high cost of living. The majority of the people who visited are in our highest registrant markets. 53 of the leads who registered this year on explorethevillage.com came across state lines to visit Hot Springs Village. We learned at the Governor's Conference on Tourism that coming across the state line is what's required to get them to move here. Our purchasers in 2018 have come from Arkansas, Texas, Wisconsin, Illinois, Louisiana, and Canada. For the folks that have been coming to Arkansas thus far, 5 homes and 25 lots have been sold, giving a 9% conversion rate for homes and a 13% conversion rate for lots of people who come across the state lines, and that excludes builders and current residents. We just put another home under contract yesterday, so that number will change. Our Canadian investor is actually a developer, and he is so excited about the future for Hot Springs Village that he wanted to be a part of it. So the 2018 sales and marketing goals, it was to increase to at least 3 builders in the Builders Guild. That's been achieved, and I thank you to all the people who have come out or gone by the houses for our 2 new builders that joined us this summer. Pocket neighborhood in the summer of 2018, that has been moved to 2019. 12 new rooftops through Village Homes and Land, this is in progress. Number 2 and 3 work in concert. Leslie's board presentation showed us starting that work in first quarter of 19, and the team is actually excited and already hard at work on making this a reality. We'll also spend our marketing dollars on targeted marketing, not simply where dollars have historically been spent, that's achieved. Focus on improving and expanding the visitor's experience, achieved. Discovery packages were first offered at the Ideal Living Expo in Chicago in January of 2018, and we continue to include them in ads, promote them at expos, and encourage their use for our leads. So what else has happened in 2018? Single-family detached homes rose from an average sales price of $1,739 in the first 8 months of 2017 to $218,441 for the same time period in 2018. Sold price per square foot of a single-family detached house rose from an average of $82.37 per square foot in 2017 for that same time period, and has risen to $95.78 per square foot in 2018. Days on market for the same time period dropped from 118 days to 74 days. New home permits in 2018 through August are at 53. 2017 had 52 total. The previous 5 years only had 40. Thus far in 2018, 25 unproductive lots have sold for a minimum increase in assessments of $11,520 per year, and more for the people who built homes on them. It's important to understand that marketing spends impact the overall real estate market in Hot Springs Village. So our 2019 sales and marketing goals. We want to add an additional builder to the Builders Guild, begin selling the Pocket neighborhood second quarter of 19, add 12 new rooftops through Village Homes and Land, sell 30 lots and sell 8 resales. Allocate marketing spends across the 3 tiers and 3 targets with an emphasis on cost-effective digital marketing as recommended in the CMP, and continue the symbiotic relationship of selling real estate and discovery packages. At this point, I'll tell you that, as you're aware, we are a real estate company now, so we are governed by real estate laws. I'm happy to come to an executive session and I can give you some averages that are used, but there are certain things that I can't discuss with you because it would come under the heading of collusion. To Bill's question, you asked about, do the builders buy the lots? Yes, and then we list it, so the commissions that are paid, they are the client, not the POA. So I do have to be careful on some of that. But anyway, that is the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take questions before I turn it over to Kevin.
You indicated that you're going to have 12, or you had 12 new rooftops.
Yes.
Is that a combination of the houses that are Builders Guild or building, and also somebody bought a lot and then built a house, or what is that?
Yes, the ones that we sell through Village Homes and Land, those are all, if they're new, those are all Builder Guild homes.
So you have 12 of those? Or?
No, that is our goal for 2019.
I thought you had 12 for 2018.
We did not open the Pocket neighborhood, nor did we have sufficient builders.
So my question though is, the ones that you already have, is that all Builders Guild, or is that just you sold a lot and then they built a house on it? The rooftops, right? Not understanding?
I'm not understanding, I'm so sorry.
I think, Bill, what she was saying, the 12 that you saw in 2018, that was a goal. That wasn't what was achieved in 2018. So we're carrying forward the same goal, and that was a goal in 2018, assuming that we might start a Pocket neighborhood in 2018. So in other words, 12 is rooftops that were added because of our Builders Guild, not because of any other reason, but because our Builders Guild member either built a spec or they built in a developed project like a Pocket neighborhood.
So the 12 is just a goal then?
12 is the
That's
goal.
right,
Okay.
that's right.
My question's really simple. Will this PowerPoint be on the web for everyone to see?
Yeah, I see no reason to not put all of these up.
Good,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that would be wonderful.
We might send it out in an e-blast, do you think, Kate? Yeah, like in, or, yeah, we'll do that.
What's the biggest risk to your plan this year, in your mind?
If we don't get the pocket neighborhood started in 2019, that will have an impact. And then as Liz said earlier, the assumptions that we made, so we did some averages of cost of homes, cost of lots, and worked with that.
What would be the risk of the pocket neighborhoods? What would you see could get in the way of that being a success?
I would, what should I see getting in the way of that? Knowing the work that's going on, I don't see any once we have board approval. We have builders who are eager to begin that process.
So the issue is the big challenge was finding builders who were willing to invest. And you now have those and you have the property. So it's just a matter of getting the plans finalized.
Yeah, and just getting the exact pro forma down and making sure we're all set with not only, we have the property, we have the style, those sort of things, but actually having a sales, engine to do those. I would say the larger risk, to maybe take your question one year or so forward, or a couple of years forward. You notice when we first started talking about pocket neighborhoods, we started talking about putting those homes on smaller pieces of property, right? And replatting that. And that's a little bit longer term process that once we get into that, replatting those lots and kind of, gobbling up the streets that are already there in that part of the process, that's just slowed down by interacting with the counties and that sort of thing. So for 2019, we don't plan on erasing any lot lines, changing any of the platted footprint, so it's really a pretty simple entry into that.
So you think the design of the properties will pretty much remain the same as they are today?
The design of the lots will absolutely stay the same. We do have some control over things that we think will give it the look that we want it to have.
Placement on the lots.
And again, just because it's such a hot topic, the funding of this will be by the builders.
It will, and when you said that about the risk and bringing on the builders, that they are the ones who assume all the risk. They buy the lots from us, and then they list the homes through Village Homes and Land. So it has to be a builder who's comfortable doing that, and now we have 3 that are excellent.
I want to add too that a lot has been said kind of out there in the masses, well, you should just give away the property to get people to build. There may at some point be some project where we utilize our asset in that way, we leverage our asset, but at this point, I see no reason why Hot Springs Village should give anything away, and that's kind of the way we set up this program. I mean, there's a tremendous value here, and if others don't see it, then the project is not, it shouldn't go forward. I mean, that's kind of the stance we're taking.
So I'll bring this up, but I'll probably continue to ask about it in our executive session, so don't let me cross a line here, but we own roughly 3,200 lots currently, is that about right? Okay, all right, and we're only targeting about 30 of them designated for sale for 2019, which is unchanged from our target for 2018, correct? Okay, so here's kind of my general question. What are we going to do, what could be done to increase our revenue line with several of those other lots, hundreds of those other lots that are in inventory?
And you tell me if I cross a line on this one. I will tell you that there are actually sometimes that I suggest something else to a customer. There's someone who wants to buy a lot this weekend. It is in an area where we don't have utilities. So I am trying to convince them that they don't want to be buying in an area that Renee's going to be coming back next year and trying to purchase back from them. So it is a strategic sales. I contact Jason when somebody wants to buy a lot. If I see that there are no houses nearby, I want to make sure that it's not going to cost us more money than it's worth to sell a lot.
And I'll just add on to that, because I know, you know, Cindy, I mean, she's a higher achiever, so I know where this question is coming from. Why, there's 3,200, why can't we sell more? I'm not recommending a mass marketing program. I said that in my very first presentation. We've already attempted that, and that left us with $17 million of bad debt. I'm not recommending a big membership in lieu of lot program. I believe that undercut the value of our properties, and I think many of our non-residents and many of our property owners saw the outcome of that. So this recommendation is truly a long-term, with this being the very first step. How do we ramp up, you know, how do we have the 150 homes a year, you know, that maybe we're here? That would incorporate some of our more dense projects that we won't be talking about for many years.
Okay, so I'm very much aligned with the notion of no mass marketing, but describe to me, if you would, because honestly I don't know, what are the downsides of selling a lot for membership purposes only? What is the detriment to the association when that happens?
You want to answer that, Renee? I mean, I think your whole efforts for 2 years probably answer that. Go ahead if you have a comment.
So we've been dealing with this for quite some time in the people who are now calling to ask to relinquish their lots back. For the people who have purchased a lot just to play golf or just for membership purchases, they don't see the value in the real estate parcel that they purchased. So thus they want to give it back. They don't find a value in it. They didn't purchase it because it was a piece of real estate. Thus they want to give it back, take it back to the window at Walmart, take it back and return it for free, because they don't really think that it has a value. And so if they didn't purchase it for a perceived value, they want to chuck it in the garbage can the first moment they don't want to use it to play golf anymore. In that case where you're saying buy it to play golf or play tennis or any other amenity. And so when they don't find a perceived value for that piece of real estate, because it is a piece of real estate, then they don't continue to pay for it. And that's the first thing they drop, is the assessment payment and the tax payment, and now we have a piece of real estate that they're trying to give back to us. Again, so a bad debt, an assessment payment that we are chasing after, and a tax payment that now it's going to eventually go back to COSL, and a title that we can't clear. One of the biggest issues that we have with parcels that people quit paying on and that we can't find and we can't skip trace and we can't chase the people is that when they don't treat it as a piece of real estate, like you treat your home, they don't continue with the title or the title clearance piece of it. So one party or they buy it in the name of a company that doesn't really exist. A lot of people bought it in a made-up company of Joe Plays Golf LLC, or I Play Golf, or I Want to Play Golf LLC. It's a made-up name, it's a made-up entity, and they bought the property in that so they and two of their buddies could play golf. And thus it was never a name, so now they really want to do something with it. They want to give it away, or they want to quit paying assessments on it.
No, okay, finish up. I just wanted to add something to it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No.
And so now we can't clear title on it. They can't really sell the piece of real estate. And they can't do anything with it because the company that they bought it in doesn't really have, or the LLC, they haven't even continued with the papers of the LLC with the Secretary of State. So now we have a dead entity and they can't even legally pass the title. So we have a dead entity with taxes, we have a dead entity with the Secretary of State, and they don't find any value in continuing to pay the assessments.
Yeah, I want to add to that. I mean, that is perfect, and you can tell she's passionate because she spent a whole year trying to pull blood out of the tournament from these people you can't find. I would add to that too, though, we are not attempting to be a tourism resort. So my recommendation is not to look for memberships. My recommendation is to look for people who value an investment here. And so that's a longer term strategy. It's just, you know, if you guys disagree with that strategy. That's part of this budget process, but that's the reason.
Can I add one thing? As far as an opportunity, one of the opportunities that we have to sell more lots, and Leslie mentioned we don't have plans to do this in 2019, but the replatting of property, when we get to a point where we can take 20 lots and make those 50 paying assessed lots, right? So when we actually are doing pocket development or neighborhood development that's creating density and space, then we're doubling down. We're getting much more out of our dollars and much more out of our lots. That's our goal. That's our strategy, is to find places where we can create density and not just have third-acre lots.
So yeah, so thanks for that explanation, and it's clear you know your stuff, and that's great. My question back, and we can talk about this a little bit more maybe in executive session, is, but those are describing realities, are they describing immutable barriers? In other words, can we sell differently?
Yes.
Whatever.
Yes,
So
we can sell differently, and that is part of the comprehensive master plan. I mean, that is, if you look through there and some of the projects that are described in the density, we are not looking to build high-rises, so I don't need to say that. That is, you know, what cities do, that is what larger metropolitan areas do, but there are ways that we can maximize, you know, those type, that we can better maximize the property that we have. Yeah.
All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to get to present to you today. I'll go ahead and get started. You know, I was so excited to see the board pass this fourth enterprise goal. This goal is essentially the essence of the tourism division. I mean, this goal provides the validity that the programs that we have created here in tourism. You know, obviously, the Discovery Package program is going to be our tourism anchor. We are committed to growing our Discovery Packages through, one, marketing, two, in supporting programs that have already been created. Let's take a deeper dive and look at a little bit from the financial perspective. Tourism Communications is a very small staff of three. It consists of myself, it consists of the communications manager, Kate, and our part-time Discovery Center employee, Susan Fight. Tourism Communications is not a direct profit division of the city. We also have no capital expenditures. The Discovery Packages do create new revenue. However, that revenue basically covers the cost of each Discovery Package that is purchased. So basically, it's a wash. Okay? Tourism and Communications represents 24% of the 2019 division budget. That being said, though the tourism division is net neutral, the growth of the program of the Discovery Packages and those supporting programs will result in new permits and inspections, the Discovery Package leads that turn into sales that will result in new residents and new assessments, and obviously the increased revenue in all the amenities that we have. All right, this is just, if you've not had an opportunity to go to explorethevillage.com and see our Discovery Package page, it is literally all right there on the front page. You can see the button that you can click on. It has high vision. And what we've done on this page to make it so easy is there's a form right there that you can fill out. I mean, it's as simple as it can possibly be to see our Discovery Packages. All right, this is just so the board will know what's included in a Discovery Package, and keep this in mind. This is a 3-day, 2-night Discovery Package. It includes customized accommodations, dinner at one of our POA restaurants, so it's either going to be at Granada or it'll be at DeSoto, access to our fitness center, including the racket court access, option to enjoy a round of golf at one of our championship golf courses. So right now for our Discovery Packages, they're using either Granada or they're using Magellan. And I want to say this to you right now. We're not taking, for our Discovery Package purposes, we're not taking up the prime tee times early in the morning for both the racket sports and the golf courses, okay? All right. Additional real estate tour available with on-site real estate agent, okay? Here's our prices for our Discovery Packages. With golf, it's $349, and without golf, it's $299. We've done our homework, we've done our research on this, on getting these prices. This is the price point that we need to be in to be competitive with other communities that are surrounding us that kind of offer the same thing. So essentially, we are not making money on our discovery packages net right now. It's a pass-through. Okay. Absolutely, Nancy.
Is the additional real estate tour optional?
No, part of coming on no. You,
Okay, that is an
if you go to the page on Explore the Village, you will see that as part of the accommodations. They see that as well as what you're seeing right here. Okay?
Sound a little optional.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of Hilton. I got a 45-minute presentation with breakfast, ends up being 4 hours. No, it's not that bad.
We don't do that, we don't have that much time.
All right, y'all, this is important, okay? What do we want to find out? What is the purpose of our discovery packages? What is the overall goal? What do we want to know? The answer is the conversion rate. How many of these discovery packages are we going to convert into new assessments? Well, if you ask me, I think every discovery package should result in a new resident. I was very quickly talked down off the ledge. That does not happen. That does not happen at all. So what I did was I reached out on a national level with Ideal Living, and I wanted to see what are the trends, what are you guys seeing on a national level in terms of discovery package, the conversion rate. And this is what David Heckett, the database manager at Ideal Living, told me. Most people start the research process about 2 years before retirement and move within a few months after they actually retire. Those who are already retired make the move in about 18 months. I don't necessarily like to hear that, but that's where we're at, and I'm looking forward to a high conversion rate. Okay? All right, so my second week on the job, we went to Chicago to the Ideal Living show. This is how many discovery packages we have done since January of 2018. We've done 32. Here's what I want to do for 2019. Tourism and Community Affairs Division wants to host a minimum of 50 discovery packages. Where did I get that number? How did I come up with that? And I based 2 factors on that, y'all. One, I told you earlier, right now we only have 1 part-time person that is dedicated to doing our discovery package reservations, doing all the logistics, and that's Susan Fight. Do I see in the future that we're going to need additional time and hours dedicated to our discovery packages? Absolutely. This is a very, very important program that's going to continue to grow over time. Number 2, and we've talked about that since we've been sitting here, it's that smart growth, right? It's that incremental strategy that we've been talking about, because I'm not a fan of that high pressure sales pitch that results in what? Bad debt, we've all talked about it, and delinquent properties. But as we move forward with our discovery packages, I continue seeing them to grow.
Kevin?
Yep.
You have a part-time person doing this now, would you say constrains your number from being higher? If that were a full-time person, could that number be higher without experiencing some of the negative that you just mentioned?
Potentially. Let me say this. So myself and Renee, we went to Tellico Village right when I started. You know how many they did last year? They did 500 and something. They have a person full-time and another part-time person dedicated to their discovery package program.
Do they have any of the negative impact that you just described if we were to try to do this too aggressively?
No.
Well, they grew it very slow.
They grew it slow. This was, now let me say this, Cindy. Let me say this to you. Let me preface that by saying this took them 5-6 years to get to the point of where they started off where we are in that lower range. That's why we went to learn how did they get this so how did they get this machine going and have be so successful at it? And they told us the same thing. It was a ramp-up process.
Let me say, Telco Village, as you know, was one of those places where NRPI operated. So did they have fallout from high-pressure cells? Absolutely. They actually were the first one to sue NRPI, which is how we knew the part of that process. So they did have fallout from high pressure, and we don't want to repeat that.
What was the conversion rate for Telco Village? Did you get that
Renee, what was it?
information?
Currently now, they got, out of their 500, they got 64 new owners this past year. It's their 6th year in their discovery package. So they started their first year with less than 30.
And Nancy, I'm going to mention a program very briefly that we just started here that makes their conversion rate high. We started the program again based upon the success we saw at Telco, and I'll get to that very, very shortly.
Buddy, did you have a question for Kevin?
No, I didn't have a question. Y'all know that I talked to Telco Village, and the thing that really came out of this, when Cooper left them, they had the NRPI people in that created a huge debt for them. They finally are still paying that off, but they came up with a plan, and it took them, I don't know, at least 2 or 3 years to get that plan put into effect. And with that plan, they are now doing very well with this, like you said. But that's how it all came down.
I mean, so here's the question. I mean, how are we going to achieve our goal for discovery packages? I mean, what are the things that we're going to do to market them? Let's go through these very, very quickly. ExploreTheVillage.com. Promotion at our newcomers meeting. What an opportunity to have our new residents here to go back and tell their friends and family about discovery packages. Ideal Living Show in Chicago, January 2019. Have y'all heard the good news? Yes, it is the partnership with the Arkansas Department of Parks and Tourism, but have you heard the very latest? They're paying for our booth. The state is committed to this retirement and relocation program that we are heavily involved in. They will be going with us, and they are actually going to help pay for they are paying for our booth. I'm very, very excited about that. All right, going to go to a golf show next year in Kansas City. Stay close. We have a travel adventures trade show that we're going to go to in Dallas. The F.L. Wood Forest Wood Cup was just here a month ago, 2 months ago. You already know they're coming back for 2019. We had, thousands of people walk by our booth. We gave out 1,000 flyers that had our discovery package as an option to come see us in the village. National websites, including Private Communities, Ideal Living, our print advertising, Ideal Living, Living in Arkansas, numerous other publications, and obviously our social media, including Facebook and Instagram. It's very, very important that we continue to advertise and market on our social media. Here are some of the supporting programs that are already developed to help lift and launch our discovery packages. The launch of our member host program. So, we have already trained 10 Hot Springs Village residents. They have gone through their certification and are ready to enjoy an amenity with guests that are here for our discovery packages. I'll tell you, I stole something that I did back in the old days at the state level, where I would teach mayors and county judges how to act in a process when a successful company is in town. I took some of that knowledge and applied it to our member host program. The do's and don'ts of being a visitor. If you would like to see a copy of that presentation, you just let me know and make sure you get a copy of that. But we're very, very excited about that. We're going to continue to grow the member host program, bring more residents in to enjoy the amenities that we have in the village, because that's a great opportunity for a visitor to not have that direct sales pitch when you agree to be with a resident who's enjoying the day-to-day life here in the village. We had 3 representatives from the Board of Realtors present at the initial meeting. They're committed to that. They're going to continue to come. All right. Here's the other program. On our website right now, on ExploreTheVillage.com, is our cost of living page. Y'all, we've got to leverage the low cost of living that makes us competitive here in Arkansas. That's one of the main questions that we got when we go to Chicago and we go to other places. What are your taxes like here? Because we all know what folks are paying in different parts of the nation in terms of their taxes. Let's leverage that so that people can know what our low cost of living here is. You all know that in 2018, we no longer tax military retired pensions. That's another target for us. We've already been to Little Rock Air Force Base, and we're going to continue to target that market, okay? Regional relationships with Hot Springs and Benton, that is so important. Because if we're, that small sector of the young and families that we're trying to recruit here, right, to the village, that's where most of the jobs are going to be for the working class people. And having that relationship in Hot Springs with the chamber, in Benton and Saline County with those folks, that is incredibly important to us recruiting working families here to the village. All right. We've addressed a lot of the external programs that are going to affect us in 2019. This slide addresses the community affairs portion of our division. This slide is about our property owners. Programs like our Gold Star Vacation Rental Program, our Member Host Program. This slide, y'all, listen, this speaks volumes to the commitment we have about keeping the property owners informed, building that trust, and the transparency. We've updated our digest. We've shortened that a little bit. We've got some good pages up there to help keep our residents informed. Let me close by saying this to you. As a certified professional community and economic developer, keeping our property owners engaged and informed is one of the pillars that defines successful community development. And I assure you that we will continue to strive for excellence when we engage with our community. And with that, I'll close my presentation.
Kevin, I have a question. Have you had any feedback from the realtors regarding all of your comments you just made? Do they like what you're doing? Do they make suggestions to you or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, it's a work in progress. One of the very first things that I did, Bill, when we started the member host program, is I went to the board of realtors and I presented to them. And I talked to them about the member host program. Obviously, they were on board with that. They love that idea. In terms of some other things, it's still a work in progress, you know. But I'm of the mindset that we all need to work together to make the village the best of what it can be. That's my personal opinion. We all have to work together to make our program, our discovery program, successful.
And just one more follow-up to Cheryl. How about your contacts with the realtors and giving the leads to them and so forth? What kind of feedback have you gotten back from them?
We're not giving the leads to them.
I thought you were
No,
giving names.
he's referring to the ones that want existing homes, I think is what he's talking about. You know, the number of leads that we turn over if they want an existing home.
Yeah,
Is that,
that's what I'm
that's
talking
what you're
about.
talking about, okay. Actually, we've got one, right now, I can't disclose a lot. Anyway, with someone that bought a house and for a reason they need to move, and so I have referred it out to a realtor. And we get a lot of the calls that Renee's talking about, lot holders, and they wanna look at selling their lots. We have not received any compensation at this point.
So I really like what I'm seeing in the discovery packages, and if there's a way in the budget that we could empower him to even do more, stretch that goal a little bit, I think that would serve the association well. One thing that I wonder if, what you think of this idea. I think we as current property owners can be the best advocates for that next entry of property owners. Do you have any ideas of what could be done in 2019 that would empower us to represent the village the best possible way to the people that we know that might be considering coming here, short of asking them to buy a discovery package?
I think just keeping engaging with our residents that we have through our digest and through our means of communication, the importance of our discovery packages, and just making sure everybody knows, because there's nothing more powerful than a resident talking, again, I mentioned this, about what it's like to live here. And if we could just bring people in on our packages, just seeing the village alone in a way, what it sells itself.
So you have a training program for your member hosts. I mean, is that something that members themselves could benefit from when they're representing to their friends and family what the village is?
When they're representing, yes, they have a resource book that they have, our member hosts do, and they know exactly how to. answer some of the questions that they could expect to come to them. Confidentiality is one of the main things, a big part of our member host program, and them maintaining confidentiality with real estate agents that the visitor brings them to. So,
Let me add to that, because I think the angle maybe Cindy was coming at is, could the average property owner benefit from this training that you gave? Maybe is there a way that we could boil down that training and put it and post it from a perspective of the property?
absolutely, I would be, this training, it works on all levels. I would be happy to do that. Why don't I send you a copy of our presentation, let you look at it, and let's collaborate on that.
Well, yeah, that's one thing. Another is just in your 2019 planning, you know, how can you leverage that idea into something that the entire community could use?
Sure.
Yeah.
As we took a look at the summary, we had the 3 pillars. We had our creating new value, addressing service, and protecting current value. The creating new value, the innovation side, if I'm interpreting this correctly, this is the majority of the expense and revenue that's in that column on this summary page, the 1 point. Well, let's see, it ends up being a net of a negative 1.1, but the actual creating new value, this is what we're doing this year for the most part in that portion of our 3 pillars of the comprehensive master plan, correct?
Yeah, that's all of it right there, offset by the additional revenues from permitting and, not permitting inspection, but the assessments. I mean, those are already here, but things that might be in another division, those are all considered in terms of the innovation. This is it right here.
Okay. So, goes to say that not a lot, not going to be spending a lot of capital or expenses or anything, and that when the majority is going to the repairing our aging assets, so to speak.
97% of our entire budget
So,
is
I'm
going
reading
to
this
repair.
correctly. This is what makes up that 1 pillar.
You're absolutely
Okay.
correct. Yep.
So if we were to acquire property, where in this presentation would that expenditure show up? Or are you assuming it's a zero net?
In this division, those costs are in this division.
Right, but where within the division? Would it be, it wouldn't be considered
Operating.
operating expense to acquire property, right?
Yeah, actually, that
Would
is
it-
where it's listed.
Oh, it is?
Yep.
In operating expense? Okay.
To be able to pull that out. I mean, to show this, I mean, you're an accountant, I'm an accountant, there's an appropriate place on a balance sheet for all of that, right? But in order to show you what the true cost is, the cost of their department, including the cost of acquisitions is here, and as Renee mentioned, she's on the low cost or no cost model for 2019, so it's a blip in here.
It's a blip.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Would it be imprudent to separate out, let's say, marketing from some of the other efforts? This is just a big blend of a lot of stuff that I know has great affinity for each other, but it doesn't lend clarity of sight as to how, but it's small dollars. It's still small dollars, but it's high leverage dollars.
Two things though. You're treading on, what's the word that you used? Collusion, price fixing. There are reasons why these are summarized. And I think that's the best way to describe it. As we begin to pull these apart, you would it'd be very easy to make that connection. So we're careful not to do that.
Anyone else? For 5 minutes over. Great job. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Okay, let's, I think we're going to take a short break. Let's come back here in another 5 minutes.
Down the back.
Crank up one notch at crank it up. Just one notch, yeah.
Okay, so next is our golf department. If you would, if you're not at that division yet, let's just make sure we're in the golf division. I'm not there yet. Oh, there we are, thankfully. So as you know, we, just this past year, we separated into our director of golf and our director of agronomy. You see that rolled up here, obviously, because we want to see the net of all of the golf activities. So, same Tom, you're going to start, and then Gary will, okay, good.
Thanks, Leslie. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to start on that first line where revenue, $7,329,499. How much are you making, Gary?
I have no revenue.
Okay. I was just checking on that. No, that one is consolidated. How's that? Which is an increase of $416,000 over last year, a 6% increase. Now I'm going to split the compensation. My compensation part of the golf shop staff is $1,148,000, which is an increase of 3%, which is right at our merit increase across the board. No additional increase. The operational expense under the golf shops is at $968,000, an increase of $40,000 over 2018, which is another fleet of leased carts being added to that expense. Overall expenses are down a little bit, but with the, excuse me, with the cart lease, it is increasing because we have another whole fleet. Excuse me. Capital, I'm at $14,500, which is a decrease of quite a bit from $79,000 last year. Now, how am I going to raise this revenue of $416,000? First thing I'm going to do is suggest zero increase to all members' fees. I'm going to address Cindy right now. Our member rounds keep going down and down, and we keep increasing fees. We need our member play out there because most of the winter, that's all there is. We are 8,000 rounds down our first 3 months of this year, which is all member rates. I believe if we increase member rates right now, we're going to decrease our rounds for members also. That's just my suggestion. How else are we going to increase the revenue? We're going to increase stay and play packages by 10%. That is nothing to these people. They keep coming thinking they're getting a deal and a half already. So an increase of 10% across the board. We'll go over, and we seem to be able to increase package rounds every year, and we will again next year at 4% more package play. We're also seeing an increase historically every single year of 4% on Golf Now, and I assume that again going on next year, a 4% increase in Golf Now rounds with a 2% increase in rates. Not very much, but our Golf Round Now keeps going up every single year. Now, how are we going to do that? Yes.
Can you tell them Golf Now? Can you explain for those that may not know who you are?
Golf Now is our leftover tee times. Basically, after the lottery runs, what we have left over after the members get first choice. Golf Now is online. They book the tee times through a third party. All that it costs us is a trade time at each golf course. Then we get all that additional revenue when they book a tee time with us. We also, how else we're going to increase revenue is the Golf Channel and myself and Matt have been talking about how to advertise the village better since the Golf Channel now owns Golf Now. So they've been a really good resource for us to keep advertising going. Kevin stole my show too. We are also going to some golf shows in the spring here to try to promote more package play. Also, we have e-blast and repeat business going out to all of our package play now that we have all the leads with all the package play. So we want to increase that through a lot of marketing and advertising to that. As far as, employees, we had a decrease of 8 part-time employees, and that is through consolidation. We have some jobs now that we had 2 people doing that 1 could have done a long time ago, so we have narrowed that down to 8 part-time positions, and it's working out very well. It's been much more cohesive throughout the golf department with that. The capital expenditures for this year from my end was we need a driving range building at DeSoto, since the driving range machine is sitting under the building with no canopy, and it's not very, it doesn't look very well, and it's not in the right position. And we have electricity and water at the driving range tee. We just need to build a building down there with a drinking fountain and the range machine. Also, we are going to spend money on a new counter and, where's Maggie? I'm gonna steal some of your thunder too. We're gonna recarpet tables, chairs, and a new counter at Coronado to try to make that golf shop and eating area more productive and more appeasing to everybody, members and visitors alike. And that's all I have.
I've got in Memphis the other night, we were talking with some of the property owners, and one of them came up and really was passionate about the idea of why don't we offer free golf to children, young people 13 and under, to encourage and promote the growth of golf, and yet still go ahead and charge the adults, but find a way to really encourage younger people to get out on the courses.
Well, right now, we're charging $4 for all juniors if you join the junior club right now. And that helps the junior clinic, that raises more entries for them, and they can play with their adult parent, supervisor, whatever, for $4 right now. I think that's a very fair fee for a kid to come out with their parent.
I will email him back and tell him he got his message through, so,
Yes.
So what about Troon and how Troon can help us next year?
Well, we are in the middle of that with Matt, myself, the sales and marketing director, Matt Lauren, and they're gonna try to help us with some e-blasts. We already are getting together with Kevin to try to e-blast their database for our discovery packages in the regional area. Right now, that's where they're gonna help us the most, is to get our package play out there in our discovery packages through e-blast.
Let me add to that. We all had a very good meeting with Troon and expressed our desire to see their efforts ramped up, to see that relationship be a little more equal footing wise, a little better return. And I believe they have committed to stepping up their efforts and understanding that we expect that they will help us to increase our visitor rounds, or we'll have to kind of reevaluate that particular contract.
I did have one last thing, and that is we are changing the schedule for the state weeks this year. Me being from the north and some other people, I realized that the northern golfer gets a little stir crazy through the long winters. We need to put the northern states that are very much likely to move to the village on the spring schedule instead of in the summer and fall. They really want to get out of Wisconsin, Chicago in March and April. We're going to make a huge adjustment to that schedule to try to get more of that done.
Okay, so as Tom indicated, one of the things we try to do, we'll go ahead and let him take all the revenue because we're going to take the bulk of the expenses. So that's the way this program works. 2018 or 2019 will be a continuation of what we started in 2018. When I sat here last year, I talked about we wanted to improve turf health and we wanted to do a better job of preparing golf courses for the golfer. And then we've done that. We focused on that for 2018. For 2019, we want to tweak that a little bit. One, we want to work on work processes and quality work. In order to do that, we are trying, and I say trying, we're attempting to transition from part-time or seasonal to full-time workers. We tried this last year, and we still brought in the seasonal workers. As we currently have, right now, I have 15 full-time openings. So bringing in some quality people this time of year, if we're having a hard time, we're struggling bringing those folks in. One of the improvements, some of the improvements we started in 18, continue in 19, is cart paths. We improved several paths on Balboa, several at DeSoto. We did a lot of patchwork at Cortez and Coronado and Ponce, and we will continue that in 2019. We started a preventative maintenance plan and to help with the turf program for 2018. We know that we succeeded. We look at different indicators of what we're doing. We know we have a stronger root mass in greens and everywhere else, so that's something that we look at. We know we had less disease pressure because we didn't have to use the emergency fungicides that are available to us for when we do have the disease pressure. We have two gentlemen with PhDs in plant pathology that we call on and use currently for their expertise. One is working with them, is mostly extensively with our greens program, and the other one's overall program. And we bring them in and talk to them. And in fact, we recently had one of them here. We wrote all 8 courses, looked at everything, and we use them when we can. So these are the things we're working on. Our budget increase is 3.7% for 2019. And the one major item that we're working on that we'll have for you in the summer of 2019 is a plan for the complete renovation of Balboa Golf Course. There's a committee that's working on the clubhouse, and then we have a committee that we're working on the golf course. A couple things with the golf course part of it, and we've heard from the membership loud and clear. We recently had an open house. One is we're not going to change the design of Balboa. There's a lot of folks out there that love the design. We will not change the overall design. It's really an upgrade of all of the turf, the irrigation, the infrastructure and everything. And then there's one piece that you'll get from me as a recommendation, or I'm not going to do it, that's up to you, is you will be getting a recommendation on, we will keep the bent grass greens and not convert over Bermuda. So that is another point of contention that's out there. It's being discussed a lot. So, our budget is $6.6 million, or includes capital. And one of the things we did do is we brought in 3 extra pieces of equipment for 19 that we need to purchase and took them out of 20. So that's part of the reason why they largely increased in capital.
I have a question regarding Balboa, and it's personal. Are the forward tees gonna be moved closer?
In the plan that we're doing, there will be an additional, I believe, 5 or 6 additional forward tees that will be installed, yes. So that is purposely we've done that. We're looking at certain holes where there'll be whole tees that are installed right around 300 yards, specifically for that purpose.
Too bad Mike's not here.
He would be all over this. I don't know, I feel like we have to do him justice, I don't know.
What's your biggest risk other than weather?
Weather.
Mine is attracting labor. I can say that. We're, like I just said, we're 15 people short right now.
Say more. What is the challenge with labor for you?
The market. It's not just us. It's throughout the United States, the market down, golf course maintenance markets throughout where I just came from. I also was struggling finding folks. In other parts of the country, you have different areas to draw from. We're kind of tied into where we can draw from here. We would hope, we had a couple high school kids that stayed on with us. Now, for me personally, I want to try to get those high school kids the advice to go to college rather than stay on with us. So it's bittersweet, but we're limited in our market here. We want to bring Hot Springs Village in this area. It's a little, and maybe Benton, but it's a little hard for people to drive from Little Rock.
Which is one reason part of, and Kevin kind of alluded to this from an economic development standpoint, it's important for us to attract workers and provide experiences and places for them. I mean, this is a prime example of making this a great place to work.
Gary, I have a question. Since I don't play golf much anymore, I don't know the condition of the golf courses. I assume, because what I can see from the road, that they're outstanding. Do you have any course that has any particular problem or disease or anything else that you're working on?
We have, I should have brought this up. We have 2 issues that we're going to have to deal with going forward that are current issues. We've got far too much crabgrass in the greens at Granada. That might be one of the things you kind of heard. We did everything on that course the same we did with the other courses. It's just, every golf course is a microclimate. Areas on golf courses are microclimate, and for whatever reason, what we tried didn't work. And I would say we probably weren't as aggressive as what we needed to be early in the spring. Once summer came, bent grass is difficult to control. It's difficult to control weeds or anything in bent grass greens because there's not a lot out there that will help you in that aspect. And the other one is we have a tremendous amount of thatch in the greens at Magellan that we also continue to work on. Those are the 2 exposures we have, the current issues we have.
Okay, so this is probably mostly for Tom, but maybe you too, Gary, on the cost side. But if I look at the 2018 golf budget, you're predicting an operating subsidization of about 16% of your expenses. And in 2019, you shrink that to 14%, so that's obviously trending in a good way. But what kinds of things, and that's with no member golf fee increases. So what kind of things would it take to reduce that even further, since golf is the 800-pound gorilla around here? I mean, whatever we do with golf has meaningful impact financially. What would it take to shrink that even further?
Have Kevin get more.
No, I'm not asking that.
I know, it's trying to turn the trend in, from my point of member play, positive again instead of shrinking. And we have some ideas about some new programs we can try to get more member play out there. But if we don't grow, the members are playing less and less as they get older. So we have to replace those rounds. We have to get. So that's my answer to you too, Bob. What was my biggest risk is to I showed about a 1% increase in member play, and that's a goal, and that's the biggest risk I have. But that's where I think we could turn it around.
Is member play up or down this year?
Down.
And what has it been the last, say, 3 to 5 years?
Down.
All right, so what's going to turn it up? If this budget is relying on it up, what are some of the interventions that you're going to do that will make that experience better?
This budget's relying on outside play driving the number. The
All right, great.
the member plays a very small part of that.
Okay, very good. So then what kind of things can we do outside of member play that would shrink the subsidization rate?
Let me answer something real quick while you're thinking, because I have two thoughts. Number one, our growth strategy. That is imperative. Replacing our golfers who, are no longer willing to play. We went for 12 years with no growth. I mean, we keep beating that dead horse. But actually, golf is pretty stable across the nation. Finally. So we should not be seeing a decline in member play if we were attracting people here that are golfers. That's number one. Number two, I think just continuing to make, we all know that the 8,000-pound gorilla is we have 9 golf courses here. So continuing to reduce that subsidy is a much longer term discussion of, is that still the right number? Certainly not throwing out any bombs, but it's very difficult to attract, talent for 9 golf courses, to staff 9 golf courses. You can't raise member fees enough to cover all of that. Otherwise, now we're getting into the value issue. So balancing that value against market rate is really, really important.
My question is, it's not really a question. Again, I'm probably a comment. You allowed people to drive on the courses so much more than ever before. I would have thought that members would have participated greater than in the past.
They certainly did. It was weather related in the spring where we lost we lost 8,000 rounds in the first 3 months. So that's where it was. Another answer to your question is also tournaments, increasing tournament play, which we're working on too. But the bulk of the increase has got to come probably from non-property owners.
Since I arrived a year and a half ago, that is the single biggest issue that folks tell me each and every day when I see them.
When they get older,
And the fact also there used to be signs restricting getting back to the paths a lot farther from the greens, and we put them up closer to the greens. Those 2 items.
I appreciate that.
I would too.
Not knowing the golf world any better than I do, which is pretty limited, but I too would believe that it would be the non-resident would be the key to the success for reducing that subsidization. So I think anything we can do in the budget that aggressively goes after that. It may mean, I don't know if it means discounting those discovery packages to encourage golfers, or what all it might mean, but it certainly has a ripple down positive effect. The more people you get in here to experience how nice it is, the more likely it'll turn into property purchases, building, all those good things that we want to have happen. So I can see us getting aggressive with some of those efforts to try to bring that revenue in here.
Which is why we had a very direct conversation with our friends at Trent as well. So, we do need to be very, very aggressive in a smart way. We don't want to undercut or cannibalize our value, because there's a tremendous value. So these guys do a great job, and I've got to shout out, I don't know, is Matt here? Hey, Matt. That's Matt right there. Matt has been working his finger to the bones, aggressively going after not only the tournaments, but also some money that was owed to us. And so, got to give Tom and Gary credit for really attacking it. As you can see in this budget, I mean, they are once again reducing the subsidy. So it's we're taking a step each year.
Have you been able to determine, Tom, if the demographics has changed? In other words, as people get older and leave, and I know that age group, a lot more people play golf in that age group than maybe the younger age group that's moving in, who are now fishermen or tennis players or hikers. Are we seeing a change in the interest of the mix of people we're getting?
Very much so. We've noticed it for the last 5 or 6 years that the people that came here years ago were playing 5 to 6 days a week. The newer people with moving in are playing 2 to 3 days a week. So it's not a lack of interest. They just have other things to do other than just play golf.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Who's up? I think Jason Temple is up. Are you, Jason? Jason Temple to come and talk to us about public utilities. Jason, please don't talk to us about sewage. Just try to keep it. It's late in the day. If any of your committee wants to move up front and, at this.
Okay, my name's Jason Temple, and I'm the director of the Public Utilities Department. And the Public Utilities Department is broken down in about 6 divisions. There's the Administration Division, which is me, an administrative assistant. We have a water treatment plant and distribution, which includes the tanks and the high surface pumps throughout the system. We also have a water line maintenance group division that focuses purely on fixing water lines, and they do a pretty good job of fixing those before. I've never seen a water line leak for more than 5 hours, so they're pretty good at that. Wastewater treatment plants is a division in itself. Wastewater line maintenance, these folks focus on nothing but keeping the force mains and the gravity sewers and the manholes operational. That's their main focus. And then we have electrical construction and controls. Those folks are many of the folks that are out there chasing the lift stations that were as part of our enterprise goals to bring all 66 or 65 of them to 100% operational capacity. And what you're going to see is kind of more of a, in all our departments here, is a laser focus on getting what we have running where it's supposed to be. And we have just a lot to catch up with in the Public Utilities Department, but we are continuing as hard as we can in that direction. So, start off with an overview of our budget for 2019, if you want to turn to page 15. And I could pretty much stay on this one page and explain our whole budget to you and answer questions as we go. Just an overview. We're expecting in 2019 $7.1 million in revenue. That's a 1% increase, mainly from the growth in houses. 60 new homes is going to generate 1% growth in our revenue. Compensation is around $2 million, and it's something interesting to note that's just mainly related to 3% proposed raises. It's also kind of an interesting statistic. Our staff labor cost is only 28% of the revenue costs for our department, and I think that's a good indication that we've kind of moved from the anemic window of operations into a healthy, maybe on the lean side, but a lean, healthy staffing ratio to our revenue area. Operating expenses represent about 37% of the revenue at $2.6 million, and that's showing about a 2% drop, and mainly that's due to just Liz working with us, trimming a lot of the, we've got some history of line items and a lot of reorganization. We've been able to trim out things that we haven't been spending money on in the past. So that's been a big help there, about a 2% drop. Overall, you're seeing about a 3% increase overall in the operational profit of the PUD. And that leaves about 2.5 million left over to pay for everything else. That includes our debt service, and if you'll jump down to our additions to the public utility reserves, this for 2019 is projected at $411,375. In the past, that's been around, I think, 326 was the year before. So we're able to increase that rate. That is with the goal of, that's part of our enterprise goals, is to fund our public utility reserve fund to the tune of $1.7 million by the end of 2021. So in 3 years, we'll have that reserve fund funded, and you're going to have anywhere from an extra $300,000 to $400,000 to think about what you're going to do with it. And we'll be kind of part of our planning for 2019 is to take a look at, I mean, we've got plenty of things to go spend money on and go chase. We have plenty of master plans and stuff to go after. But how should we do that? And so we're going to have, 2019 is going to be a year that we really we're going to take a look at that long range, big number, you know, in our infrastructure, deferred maintenance that we're going to try to go after, how we're going to do it. So in the back of your minds, kind of keep in mind that in 2021, we'll have that reserve fund funded, and in 2022, that's another part of our enterprise goals, we'll have the repayment back to the water plant general fund paid off in 2022. We're paying that off at a tune of $500,000 a year. So at the end of 2022, you'll have about $800,000 to $900,000 worth of revenue that you can either cash flow and really take some big chunks of these infrastructure projects off the books, or you can finance, use it to finance, whatever you want to do. We got 2019 to kind of, you know, between now and 2-3 years to get that figured out. Revenue assumptions at the 7.1 million, that is basically for 2019, we're not proposing a utility rate increase. You know, the increase is mainly based off of growth, and that's kind of interesting. It's not something we've been able to kind of count on in the past. Last year we had some 50 new homes. This year probably going to have 50 plus to 60 is our goal, and that's a 1% increase in our revenues. All we had really had planned was a 3% for this year, and just kind of track and say it had cost of inflation. So now that you have growth working into this, it's something you can take, you know, you can blend that into your revenue assumptions. Staffing, we're not proposing to do any staff increases for 2019. We're in the middle of kind of, the utility department's been reorganizing for the past 2 to 3 years. Each of these divisions, we've tried to bring people up, leaders in each of those groups, so each of those can operate independently, and they also can work together as a team very well without me. So we're almost, I would say this year has been that transition year where the leadership team has been equipping and building up to that point where they do all the ordering, they do all the planning, they're part of this budget planning process, and they could operate on their own with or without me in the future.
Excuse me, Jason.
Not that I don't need a job. Part of my job is to train.
We would, yeah. That's a great strategy.
Okay, that leads to, lastly is our capital. We've got $1.2 million planned for capital infrastructure projects for water and wastewater. In the water department, and if you want to see the breakdown, it's on page 24, but there's about six items that are over $50,000, and there's about 14 items that are less than $50,000. They all came from our master plans, our capital improvement plans for water, wastewater treatment plants, and our sanitary sewer evaluation surveys. So I have plenty lists of items for us to prioritize on for the next 20 years. But capital for next year is at the tune of $1.2 million. We're going to be looking at updating our water long-range master plan for next year. That's not a big capital item, but that's going to generate new planning and new prioritization. We're going to be this will be the last year that we'll do our tank rehab project. So we're expecting, there's only one tank out of all of our entire system that we did not repaint. That's because at the beginning of the 5-year inspection, it was in pretty good shape. Well, we may find out at the next year when we do a complete 100% inspection of that, and we also do the long-range master plan. Well, that tank may need to be scheduled to be repainted, and we'll kick that in the next 5-year cycle. But for next year, we're gonna do one tank. It's the tank area 9 over, it's off of Castano. It's the one with the lots of legs underneath it, and it's probably fairly expensive to repaint. They'll have a mixing system in, and there'll be 2 tanks, B1 and B3, that will have the mixing systems added in to keep our water pressure. On the wastewater treatment plant side, also one more thing on water, we're going to be doing a phase 1 connection with North Carolina County Regional Water District. That is at the Balboa gate entrance. We're going to extend actual real hard pipe in the ground and do a physical connection. And that's just phase 1. Phase 2 will probably bring in a chlorination system, advanced SCADA control systems, and we'll be able to use that not only initially only for emergency purposes only, but we may be able to use it as a supplemental as needed in the future. For example, one of our big projects planned in the next couple of years is a large 500,000 gallon tank that's proposed on the east end of the village. Well, that might be a good substitution. Is if the thing works out great for North Carolina County Regional Water District, we may not have to build that tank in accordance with state regulations. We may be able to use that supplemental secondary water supply as a substitute.
Just a point for the board members, this had to do with the water tower.
Mm-hmm.
Are you aware from what happened in the last everyone? Okay, sorry.
No problem, that's good context. And so in our wastewater treatment plants, we're still continuing replacing a lot of wore out infrastructure. I mean, you have 2 wastewater treatment plants, each of them have 1 million gallons per day of capacity, and they've been sitting at 50% load. Now, Mill Creek has grown in this load over the past year, a lot of it due to the rain. But you have 2 half-loaded wastewater treatment plants that have been sitting half-loaded for 20 years, and now they need replacement. And so that's kind of where we're at. We're kind of halfway into that. We did knocked out a pretty good chunk of that this year at both of the plants. We're looking at doing maintenance side of a deal, knocking out some more next year, and those actually about 2 or 3 years away from being able to actually replace almost every component that's needed to be replaced at this time. So at Mill Creek, we're looking at spending about $210,000 next year as a maintenance program, and at Cedar Creek, about $135,000. If you're interested in the actual components of it, the key words would be we're going to be replacing filters at Mill Creek, which is actually essential to provide the type of high quality water that we're discharging out of from that treatment plant. We're also looking at doing some lab building expansions. The operators are transitioning to operating in a more technical world, so they're having to look at microscopes and look at SCADA systems and monitor lots of lab data so they can go out there and make the adjustments in the treatment plant to keep it within the permit requirements. And then over at Cedar Creek, we basically just have a lot of replacement. We got a clear drive that we didn't replace this first round that's going to be due to be replaced next year. UV control systems have to be replaced. So just a lot of replacement stuff. Same old story there within that. And so that's the story for next year. Any questions?
Jason, I'm curious as to how much of the actual budget is in your department? You have that figure? The total $33 million budget, $37 million.
Yeah, there's a graph.
Are you talking about expense or capital or both?
Yeah,
Are you talking about that?
The whole amount.
So look on page 15, Bob. So 2 million for compensation, 2.6 million.
I think if you look on like the percentage of total revenue by division.
Yeah, divide that into 33.
If you look at page 10.
Oh, 10, yep, you're right.
10 and 11's got good graphs there for you.
There's your revenue and your expense, yeah.
So how much of that have we
14%.
moved into the preventive maintenance instead of just chasing all the emergencies?
Okay. For example, continue on capital, and this is just for public utilities, equipment and projects. 17% of that budget that I just talked about is going towards capital purchases. Our public utility reserve funds is 6% of the revenue. And the repayment to the general fund of $500,000 is 7% of the revenue. And that bottom figure there, the $824,000, that's repayment to the general fund and fleet, $324,000 of that goes towards our portion of the fleet budget for buying new vehicles or new backhoes. And that represents 5% of our revenue.
Let me clarify. I think, Bob, let me clarify your question. Your question was if Jason could separate between preventative maintenance versus deferred maintenance in what he's doing. Was that your question?
Yes, in the past year, we haven't had a lot of preventative maintenance.
Yeah.
Okay, now, about everything we are doing is replacement related. Everything is.
So you're not yet to the preventative maintenance stage and any significant percentage at this
On
point?
the lift stations, the lift station funds that we're spending, like this year we spent 250, next year is proposed to be about 187,000. Those are still replacement, but after that, we are sustaining that, and as anything goes out, we're just changing it, fixing it on the fly in a more timely manner, which I would consider proactive.
So your inventory of spare parts then, which you didn't used to have any, is starting to look pretty good?
Still very fluid, comes in and goes out.
Good.
Hey, Jason, I have a question. You say fees aren't going up. I remember there being a study a couple or 3 years ago with regard to our water fees and that sort of things. How close are we to market on our fees then? I mean, to what we should be charging?
Okay, the utility rate study that was updated last year, there's a graph in that kind of shows us on how we are, with our proposed 2018 rates, how we stand in comparison to the surrounding communities. And the way I describe it, folks, is we're just to the right of center on the healthier side. All right, so if center is average, we're just to the right of that.
A little higher than average?
Just a little bit higher than average, and that's where we should be, because for the utility as big as we are and spread out with the number of residents that we have, your individual burden, so to speak, or distribution of those costs is a little bit higher compared to a city of the same population, but on a tenth of our footprint. You know what I'm saying there?
Just a question, it gets back to reserves. Our reserves are, our reserves are basically set up to cover the full cost portion of our investment. In other words, we're putting back money to, basically to cover depreciation, so that in the future we would have the funds available up to a minimum of 1 year.
So I would say our reserves are based on our original cost because of the depreciation. I would not say we're yet to full cost, which would, because we did a lot of work in-house and some things that would have, the reserves themselves being based on depreciation is a first step to actually a two-step program. Yep.
But the 1 year is a minimum.
The 1 year is a minimum. 1 year of depreciation on, I can't remember, do you remember how much in assets we have in total? I just threw her for a loop. Yes, it is based on all of those assets and the current depreciation on them.
Yeah.
And when you talk about our rates, do most cities build or work towards a full cost, or are they just scrambling to keep up?
Didn't Mr. Jackson talk about that when he was here? Most cities are scrambling to keep up, which is why when you talk about our rates, how comparable are our rates? Most are way lower than they should be, as he said. So I don't think many cities have gotten to a full cost reserve process, which is where you ultimately want to be.
So with that being a little right, as you say, of center, is driven to a certain extent by us trying to do the right thing going forward, as opposed to just funding whatever we've got and always chasing them.
And right, that's part of it. I mean, I would call what y'all have planned a very, very smart, wise, thorough plan to underfund your utility only means you're gonna have a major catch up down the road. Now, we've had a major major catch-ups here for the past 3 years. And we're in that healthy zone where we can chip away at what we need to be chipping away at, but we're also positioning ourselves to really knock out some big chunks here in the very near future. Also, with the reserve fund, your risk factor, you've been asking everybody about risk. Are you going to ask me? You definitely lower your risk as you chip away with keeping your infrastructure up to speed and having that reserve fund. So in case we have a catastrophic failure, which is likely when you have an old infrastructure, the major section of sanitary sewer just turns into a sinkhole, or we have a major pump station get hit by lightning or a tornado, or anything like that. There's not that many things out there that $2 million couldn't quickly replace, all right? And so you're in good shape there that we could, we'd have the funds without putting an extra burden on the rest of the POA to address these things, and they are. I mean, those things are very viable and could happen, and we're ready for them. Our revenue is very low risk because, it's pretty steady, and if you don't pay, that someone goes out there and turns your water off. And so that's pretty reliable. But on the expense side, having the reserve funds, a proactive maintenance program keeps continuing lowering your risk for any type of surprises or catastrophic expenses.
I really appreciate you being true prophets.
Absolutely.
I was gonna say, because of him, he funds a lot of those other operations, right? So it's not just that.
He does not fund anyone other than public utilities, so I want to clarify that. He is his own, in order to make sure that that the public utilities is completely self-sufficient. We don't transfer any money out of that except for he is currently repaying his loan, so to speak, to administration.
So what happens with the surplus that his division generates?
It's going into that reserve. There is
Only into the reserve?
That's right.
Ah,
yeah,
okay.
that's right.
Thanks, I didn't know that. Thanks.
Yeah, until which is why we said this year we can fund the reserve appropriately. There is no reason to increase rates until we have better information about all of our operating and maintenance, that deferred maintenance items. So
yeah, I think the compelling case to me for not increasing rates is what you said, that we're running just a little north of market now. But if we weren't, again, if we could build that reserves faster, that would be great, but anyway.
Well, keep in the back of your mind, being to the right of average is probably our normal spot for our type of utility.
But if you're lagging, I have a different perspective.
That's right.
and Liz just mentioned, he has $70 million worth of assets, so just to keep in your mind, that's where that depreciation is from, that $70 million. Jason, thank you very much. Mr. Alt, as Mr. Alt comes up, he's going to talk to us about streets and sanitation, and as you all know, our Public Works division no longer has a division director. So I want to thank Alan for coming and taking the spot, the normal budget spot for the streets department and the sanitation department. And it will be his first time, so be kind. And Alan, make sure you pull this mic up, or we'll never hear you. Just pull it right on up there. Just sing into it.
You don't want me singing. Okay, our revenue for 2019 is projected to be a little more than it was in 2018. That's mainly because of the projected new homes, and we are going to restructure kind of our commercial sanitation. The gentleman we had running that truck before was a great guy, but if he drove by somebody's dumpster and saw it needed to be dumped, he dumped it, and they didn't get charged for it.
Oh, no.
So talking with Miss Mayhood and Liz, and we have told the driver now to dump them the number of times they're supposed to be, and if they need more, they can pay for it. So we'll have a little more revenue from that. On our compensation, it's increased a little bit, and that's mainly because of the 3% increase that we're supposedly going to get.
On the
That is a merit increase.
merit
So it's
increase.
based on your view.
In other words, you're saying I'm not gonna get one?
No.
Depends.
You've been working very hard. You've been working very hard.
You're not gonna tell him until after this meeting.
He has been working hard.
On the operating expense, it is going up, quite a bit, 562,000, is it? It's more than that, wasn't it, 685?
That's the number right there.
Okay, I was told years ago that the street department was hit for about $800,000, because they needed money somewhere else, so they took it from the street department. And we've been running behind ever since, and we're trying to catch up a little bit this year. We'll try to do more road resurfacing, more culvert repairs, and that type of thing. And on the capital, we have $54,000. That is to build a equipment shed. We have thousands of dollars worth of equipment that sits out in the weather, and I believe the equipment shed would more than pay for itself to take care of the equipment that we have. And I guess we're going to increase staff by one. I'm going to research costs for a wash bay and oil water separator for the sanitation trucks. And we're working on spillway maintenance and dam maintenance, and we're going to research recycling this next year. And we're going to emphasize on the street maintenance program.
This may be for you or Liz. If we're adding an additional sanitation staff, why is the number of employee count
I
staying the
knew
same?
we couldn't get anything past you, Bob. It's a net zero addition. We will not be I'm not recommending that we refill the Director of Public Works. It will be part of the transition plan when Ms. Mayhew retires. So net, we are adding a sanitation person, and that position is being eliminated.
I thought Alan was getting 3 new people.
No, they didn't go. I had a full crew for 1 week. I've got a guy that's leaving Friday, and I'll be back down tomorrow.
All right.
3% increase, yeah, it shows 6. Where's the other 3 coming from?
It says additional staff, right? Did we look at that? Oh, you know what, it's workers' comp too. We've got an issue in workers' comp there and some benefits. Yep, yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah, the other thing is that you shifted a little bit from some part-time positions to some full-time to address our culvert repair project.
Yes.
So benefits went up.
Yes, yeah, that's good, thank you.
Alan to talk about what we're doing from now through the end of the year on our culvert program and how we're addressing.
We are doing GIS on our culverts. That is, I can go on the computer, look them up, and pull up, like on DeSoto, I pulled them up the other day, and from the front gate to Fresno, there is 22 culverts, I believe, that we're going to try to redo next year. And there's several more in that stretch that we're not going to do. I counted them today, there's 85 culverts on DeSoto Boulevard. And when we do the ones next year that we can do, we'll have the majority of the ones on DeSoto that are spin castable redone. And I've got that budgeted for this year is from the West Gate to Fresno to do those.
I was trying to look it up real quick. Sanitation rates aren't going up either this year. Okay, are we at market for that?
We're close. I checked what I pay in Garland County for once a week pickup and what we charge here for curbside, and it's close.
Are we below it or over it?
I believe we're, I I think we're like $2 a month less than York County.
It's slightly less, but it's close.
Yeah, so again, that might be another opportunity, for revenue.
You running for office next time?
No, because I get voted out. I know that's not a popular topic, but just to restate that top line at 1.3% just does not feel sufficient considering our challenges.
I understand.
Yeah, we, again, 2019, we want to verify our efficiencies, and that's why we've not recommended those increases. And we want to be able to describe our value as well, because it's not just on what we need or what we might need in the next, 10, 15, 20 years. I just want to get more information before we go making those type of decisions.
I didn't say that we are going to try to GIS every culvert in the village, so we can know where they are, know what kind of shape they're in. Todd has been doing that part-time, and like the ones that have been done, he goes in there and he rates them by condition, tells what they are, tells when they were reconditioned, and that type of thing.
If there's no other questions for Alan, I just want to say one thing for him, but I want to give you an opportunity to ask any questions for Alan. Alan has been without staff. He described that. He's had his budget cut, and you've been here how many years, Alan?
43.
43 years. He has seen his department, the streets department, get raided year after year after year, whether it be staff or whether it be dollars. And he's held it together. And so I just want to publicly say, with this year, you've accomplished, you redid Barcelona, you reopened Barcelona. You've done a tremendous amount of backlog projects, and we owe you a big round of applause. So can we give him that?
Kelly, you went 3%.
No, I want 10.
That's where the 9% is. There's 6%. They're gonna give him more.
That's more that you got told me to tell them.
The risk.
The risk, oh yeah, the risk. The risk is like we had this year, Barcelona Road falls off, it wasn't budgeted. We have other things like that that could happen that's not really budgeted for. So I did put some in as a contingency for that type of thing, but it wouldn't have paid for what Barcelona cost.
Jason's got money.
I know.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. Appreciate that very much. At this time, I think that was our last presentation for the day, and now it's time for the board to have a discussion.
Well, no, we're gonna have some questions. We have three things just real quick. I got a summary of the key issues that we want to talk about. One is revenue, the other is the balance sheet, we wanted that, and the third was land issues that we were going to talk about possibly in an executive session. Those are the three main issues that I recall that we said we still need to address going forward.
The rate at which we're chipping away at for maintenance.
Well, but that's the revenue issue. All right, now, for the first time, as I've been told, we will open the floor to questions relating to the budget. We'll see how this goes. We're going to use cards. We always reserve the right to get smarter, but this is where we're going to start. And Chuck, did she say stand up or shut up? And she hit you in the nose? What happened?
I went to the doctor this morning.
Okay. Looks like she busted you. So while we're,
I'm just.
Dang, Melinda.
and she's tough.
Yeah.
All right.
Small but mighty.
Then once we go through these questions, we'll close with the board discussion.
Questions for administration. How many of the 26 employees are director level, manager level, etc.? Does compensation line include benefits, pension contributions? answer the next part. Liz, you pull that up. Let me answer the second question first. Does compensation line include benefits, pension contributions? Yes, that is total compensation. There are 4 director level in administration, 4 of the 26. Second question, revenue on page 6 does not match dues on page 12. Let's see here. Yeah, okay. So the revenue on page 6, which describes all of the revenue sources in excess of $50,000. Number one, everything on here is in excess of $50,000, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing, which is the bigger thing, is this does not include bad debt expense, which is on page 7. So what you're seeing on page 12, what you're seeing on page 6, which is the summary, is a net revenue number with bad debt. And then what you're seeing on page, the other page is actually just part of the gross revenue. Yep, good one. Page 12 is the gross revenue, page 6 is the net. Is that what you meant?
No. Page 12 is the net.
Page 12 is the net. Sorry, y'all get it. Page 12 is the net, page 6 is the gross, but only over 50,000. Homes that are sold by Village Homes, who or where does the commission go? The commission goes to Village Homes and Land Corporation, so that does not go to an individual. Or the accommodations for discovery packages, I heard it was the Arlington and Mount Carmel. Why can't we find a home or house within the village to rent? Let me stop there. So the accommodations are at the Arlington and Mount Carmel. It's important for us to find places that we can rely on, that are predictable. People like to have those type of services where they, have your traditional, whatever, meals or whatever, that sort of thing. It's not always as predictable when we fill up with homes, although we do that on occasion as we can. That's one of our biggest issues in terms of putting people in homes or houses, other than those that we just started our Gold Star program, because we can't always control the experience, and that's an issue for us. So, where is the repair shop club car promised? If we lease from them, it was supposed to be in or near the village. Where's golf? Okay. Tom?
They promised it over until we get the full.
Oh, they would do it at the full fleet. Have you talked to them recently, Tony?
They are in negotiations right now, actually, with Denver to try to buy them out, and that doesn't work out.
Okay. So it sounds like they're in negotiations right now for that particular issue, for that particular solution, and that our agreement was that it would happen once our full fleet was purchased. So obviously they don't come here just for, but you're on top of that. That's an excellent question. Yeah, when will the full fleet be purchased? That's like a 5-year program, right? So this is our 3rd year. Okay, this is 2019 will be our 3rd year. Water separation for sanitation trucks. What is this? I don't understand the question. Water sanitation, water separation for sanitation trucks.
That is a place to wash the trucks out with a filter system that'll filter the oil and stuff out of the water that will go into the sewer system.
A filtering system when you wash the trucks to make sure that we don't contaminate the land. Right? Okay. Try to, for over some years, I can't read the number, we've sought solutions to numerous water main breaks, and severely patched up Estrada Way, that's a 7/10 mile conditions are deplorable. Will the budget involve a repair or replace of the whole line and revisions to the road. Would someone that wrote that like to ask that? Can you boil it down for me, Tom? Just ask me the question again. Not, you don't have to give me the background, but clarify the question for me.
The question is really for public utilities and public works. The road is 7/10 of a mile long. It's had 14 water main breaks. It is filled with patches from one end to the other. Needs a culvert on one of the roads.
Estrada Way you're referring to?
Estrada Way.
Okay.
And there's houses on there that belong to the golf course.
Oh, Entrada Way that water the golf courses.
Yeah. I've been trying to get a view as to when will it be put in the budget to probably have to replace the entire water line, because Jason said they run under the road. And then the second one.
Wait, stop, don't ask me the second one yet. Let me get the question to your first one. So do we have, at this time, have we prioritized the replacement of the entire water line on Entrada Way?
It is on our long-range plan, it is not projected for 2019. That probably, big line replacement project will probably start in the next couple of years.
Yeah, he's saying not for 2019, but they're prioritizing that in the next couple of years. All right, so let me see on the second question if I can ask it.
So that means the road doesn't get fixed for the next 2 years either.
We're not gonna go in and repave the road and Jason go in next year and dig it up.
Yeah.
We will work on the drainage issues. I met with Mr. Raymond, but we've been kind of busy, but, we will work on the drainage issues before then, and, if there's any patching that needs to be done, we'll try to get that done. But if the road's gonna be dug up to replace the water line in the next year or two, we don't want to go repave it and.
They've both been very cooperative with me.
Thank you. Yeah, hey, it sounds like it needs to be done, so let's get that on the schedule and figured out, but I agree, let's not just go patch it some more and then dig it back up. Question 2 was the frequency of water line breaks on the west end, how severe is this problem? Alan, what's the frequency, no, that's Jason. Jason, what's the frequency of water line breaks on the west end?
I think they break all over the place. Depends on if the firefighters are testing. We also, like Alan's doing, our GIS and our repairs to see, to have a better answer in the future, what percentage they're on the east and the west.
Okay, Jason's saying pretty well a lot of times. I know, again, Alan, I have a big dip on my road. I'm just gonna throw that out there one more time while we're all getting our roads. But yeah, what he was saying back there is the water department is measuring those with GIS so that we can again prioritize all that goes into some of what I was saying to you, Cindy, of when does all of this need to be done? We need to get it all first identified, and that's one of the things. Admin police. Why do we not charge for gate stickers for every resident car? You know, we used to, and the board said a couple of years ago, I think it was a goodwill gesture that the board said as part of your assessments, you would get 2 free stickers right up front, and then any future ones would come at a cost. So that was a decision made a couple of years ago. Recover cost of stickers. Yeah. Okay. Are the 3,200 lots good and have road utilities nearby? If yes, why not push the marketing of them? The answer is no, not all of them are. Part of them are both in our suspension strategy and our sales strategy. So but that's one of the things that Renee remarked about. That's what we're evaluating. Question for golf. Can we get more nearby play of outsiders if we lowered price on the East End courses? Yeah, Tom is saying to keep our value. I think this question goes to market rate. I mean, I think everybody comes here, right, and they all say, well, these are still, you know, fairly low prices, so.
We do offer a lower rate too.
Yeah, we have the afternoon rates. You know, I don't think that discounting our golf is the answer on visitor play so much as increasing our direct marketing of those efforts. And once we equalize that and know better, you know, then we can look at pricing. But for right now, we're actually very, very competitive for the quality of courses. Okay, this is long. Collusion in real estate is a clandestine agreement between two or more competitors with the intent to defraud other real estate holdings or investments. So this would not pertain to anything we do or discuss in-house. Do you agree with that statement? Commissions are definitely something that, and by the way, she has her broker's license, so I would trust her to differentiate between what we're able to discuss and what she's not able to discuss. Because of course, I mean, right now, today, we're recording this, so we don't, it's not necessarily contained within this room. That aside, then why would we not break this up to more manageable, logical groupings, speaking about the sales, marketing, development, tourism, communications, permitting, and inspections? I think we've answered that there's two reasons, not only on the real estate side to completely unveil our entire business plan, if you will, but then on the real estate acquisition side, that would also demonstrate some of our efforts there, some of our areas. So this is for Cheryl for real estate. Mr. Blakeman, did you write this?
I don't know, I had one card, that's all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but you did not get to the back of my card.
This one? Wait, which one was it?
The first one you had.
Oh, hang on, let's go back here. Okay. Real estate sales. Oh. Will our Builders Guild homes listed by Cheryl going to be put out on MLS for other realtors to sell? They are today. They are today, yes. Tourism discovery packages. Who does the real estate tour part? Cheryl. Yes, Cheryl. We also have, though, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, if a discovery package comes in from another real estate agent, did you not agree that you would make sure that agent gave the tour?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have, that's one of our agreements.
I pitched that to the board of realtors.
Yes, that was one of our agreements with the Board of Realtors to make sure that if any discovery package came to us by another realtor who's not Cheryl, we would not in any way try to interfere with that relationship. Okay. Steering is an illegal activity in housing, especially if children are involved. Steering, what does that mean?
Yeah, go live over there because.
Okay, I see, especially, I didn't make the connection, especially if children are involved. Okay. Steering is an illegal activity in housing, especially if children are involved. The word steer or steering should never be discussed or used. Did we say that? Did we say that somewhere? Who?
I think possibly it might have been alluded to with the suspended properties. That we would not want to, you'd want to try and talk them out of buying something in a suspended area.
Is this your question, Nancy?
No.
Oh, okay. I was just going to ask if, okay, but I mean, that makes more sense now because I heard the same thing. Okay, so, but that related to the, okay. There were no utilities there. So not necessarily.
I have to ask whoever asked the question, but that would be what I would.
Yeah, that's a good point. But you're absolutely right. I mean, we shouldn't try to steal business, so to speak, right?
Well, that's not silly, it's just directing people appropriately and not letting them choose the way around.
Yes, that's right. We have all fair housing practices and all kinds of stuff to follow. Okay. All right.
What's the question?
It was just a statement.
No, there's a question.
Oh, you wrote this, Mark. Well, Marcy, why don't you explain then your question? Your question, please.
Well, you can read it, or can you not read it? It's only 2 lines.
But I think I did. So her activities don't fall under that. Oh, what could Renee do sooner rather than later to declare suspension or development areas? And that, so that she doesn't have to do that. Okay, good question. So one of the things Renee talked about was the suspension strategy. They already know those things today and they're discussing those things, but the suspension strategy that will be coming to the board officially.
Okay, thank you. In June is when we have it slated for, yes, that's right. Golf, this is for, golf and Matt, Matt's not even, Matt? No. Okay, so Tom, you're up. What does Matt do regularly, bringing in outside group play, tournaments, etc.? What's the golf marketing plan for 2019, and how will that change from 2018? Do you want to come up here and answer that?
While we're meeting with True.
Why don't you use the mic, and if you don't mind. So what does Matt do regarding bringing in outside group play, tournaments, etc.? What's the golf marketing plan for 2019? How will it change from 2018?
The biggest change from 2018 to 2019 is Oaklawn, for one. Matt has met continuously with Oaklawn, and we have another meeting with them, and they want to bring out their Gold Star people to play more outside golf here. Also, we're meeting with Troon to help set up the marketing plan for 2019. We have one for 18, and there's some changes with Golf Now, which I went over, that the Golf Channel now owns, and we're going to use more of their e-blast and advertising money.
That's all. Well, thank you so much for your questions. Better late than never. Jump on.
This is not from Melinda. Melinda just brought it up here. What's the actual status? What's the actual status of the eager developer interest in the pocket neighborhoods? What do we have in writing and how many? What's the actual status that we just met? We don't have a contract in writing, so I can answer that. But we're in active communication with the builders, developers. Matter of fact, we just met a couple weeks ago on that. So the actual status is us determining that final pro forma and presenting that pro forma and kicking off the sales plan.
No kind of letter of interest or anything?
We have not signed any of that. I will say the only thing we've signed has been that builders guild agreement in the very beginning that basically said any of the new projects that they're interested in, that those builders are interested in, they would have first opportunity for those types of projects.
How many are we talking about?
The builders, we have 3 in our builders guild today.
No, I mean, that have expressed this eager interest.
All 3? 2 for sure, sorry, 2 for sure, yeah.
Okay, any more questions? Okay. Just a comment from me. I wish you'd encourage more people to come. This is disappointing. We want to hear what's going on. They want to have comments about what's happening or not. And you can learn a lot by sitting in here and understanding what's going on. And I would appreciate it if you would encourage people. Yeah, Tom.
Just a quick comment. This was so much superior to the one I was in last year, when I was told right out of the gate I would not be allowed to ask the question. Now that we've done this, let's promote the living daylights out of the next one on 10-1.
Okay.
I'll be glad to promote it.
I would appreciate it if you would.
Because sometimes the user of all the work that you're doing may have the one question or the one idea or the one thought that nobody else is talking about.
I agree. Amen.
Let's get them out here.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, board, it's up on how we want to close out. It's up to you. I'll open it to the floor.
This time period was for
Any further discussion? I think I've mentioned the 3, what I recorded is the 3 main issues: revenue increases or streams to better fund our needs, which a need for the balance sheet. They would like to have a pro forma balance sheet, and we want to talk about land issues in an executive session. Are there any other things that you all would like for us to pursue as a result of this meeting? No notes allowed. You have to do it by memory.
We don't give you cards.
This is my first one to set in like this. I've enjoyed it. I think we've picked up a lot of information, and having it open to the public, I think is super, Tom. I really do. I think if we can get this out, that this is available, I thought we had, but like you, I'm disappointed in the people that showed up today because.
I'm not disappointed in
No, I don't mean that. I mean, the lack of people, okay? But, they just need, I mean, that somehow or another, we need to get it out that this is available. And also, you might tell the ones that are here the time frame for our next one. Thank you.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
It's on our schedule.
It starts at 9 in the morning
Coronado.
at Coronado, and there we go. Yeah, thank you. Bill?
Bob? Cindy's asked everything I thought of.
Oh, God.
I'm with everybody else. I really thought that I had encouraged people to come and participate in this. And I am disappointed in the numbers today. I really thought we'd have a full house, because this is where the action is, as I said before. This determines what's gonna happen this year.
Cindy?
Nothing more.
Okay. I want,
Everybody can breathe.
I want to go ahead and thank, on behalf of the board, all of y'all that showed up and put on the great presentations. It set a standard for those who haven't presented yet. But I'm sure you all can measure up to that standard. So let Leslie close us out.
No, you can close us out. You stole my thunder. I think these guys did a phenomenal job, and I want to say to the people out in the audience, actually, I'm very enthused to see you because I think last year we had 3. So by my standard, we like quadrupled.
Offer a discount on the fees, maybe you'll get some.
Oh, that's true. That's, yeah.
Okay.
Wait a minute, there's food involved, that also
Marcy?
helps.
I was just gonna ask, of the 3 things that you, reviewed going to executive, what about those 3 topics would have you go into an executive session versus an open session?
There weren't all 3 doing that, just the one on land, and because land has some potential issues with respect to confidentiality and the strategy, we would meet on it because of that.
Which, by the way, that's congruent with our open meeting policy. There's a whole line on land and land acquisition strategies as being exempt from open meetings.
At one of the 7, yeah.
Yeah, it's one
I
of the
just
7.
didn't know what it
Yeah,
was.
that was it. That's a good question. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn? All right, we're through. Thank y'all.